real-time clock first, and let me just show you why I'm taking the angle that I'm taking today before we get into it. So let me get my handy drawing tool. Let's see, does the massive circle jump out? All right, so here, no, it didn't. So here is Mars. This is around Halloween, turning retrograde. And Mars is going to be turning retrograde in late Gemini. And as it does so, what I want you to notice is that it is within 3 degrees of Neptune in Pisces. Now, as that is happening, we are going to see, remember, as this transit was forming, if we go back in time, Mars has been sitting at the square to Neptune since, like, let's see, if you go all the way back, sorry, I'm backtracking a little bit more. That square goes on. The square was exact right around the beginning of October, and then it sat in the square with Neptune all the way until the end of October. And now it's going, and if you count the 3-degree range, you're talking about late September. So Mars has been squared to Neptune since late September. Now, if we take it forward through the retrograde, let's find out how much longer it stays in that square, just so you can see how profound this square really is. The square to Neptune is going to perfect again, not until about November, what is this, about like November 18th into the 19th. So and then if you take the 3-degree orb again, which we call the engagement range, that puts it all the way till December. So, a huge amount, September to December, we're dealing with a Mars-Neptune square. And remember that this retrograde is toned by whatever Mars is doing at the outset of the retrograde. So it is a retrograde toned by a Mars-Neptune square. Now, the other thing that I find fascinating about this is that Mars in Gemini is in Mercury's double-bodied air sign. It's a spring sign. It's a very youthful sign. It's a very playful sign. Now, some of that playfulness can be sort of mischievous, and there can be themes of like deception. We're going to have Mercury entering Scorpio pretty soon, and as that happens, then the potential for like subterfuge and cloak and dagger and cybercrime and stuff like that can kind of get enhanced. But what I wanted to, and I'm going to talk about that in a future video, but what I want to talk about today is about the youthful, curious, fun, playful side of Mars in Gemini, as well as combining that with the very magical, magician-like side of Mars' square to Neptune. And the reason that this came up, for me to talk about today, just so you guys are aware, is that I was contemplating these pairings as I was at Disney World for a week. And this is perfect. Mars in Gemini for a long time has been associated, Mercury was associated with games, and Gemini with childlike games. And then when you take Mars in Gemini, you're talking about competitiveness and games and things like childhood playfulness is very Mars in Gemini. As a Mars in Gemini native myself, I can tell you that I love to play games. In fact, one of the things that I'm doing this week, as I do every year, well, starting last year, I made it a tradition.
Games. I thought it was games.
As a kid too. My dad did it for us. I'm building an elaborate maze out of cardboard boxes in our basement for a fun Halloween game. Excuse me. And so, naturally, and for me, like, as a kid, it was video games. I've always loved board games. I've always loved sports. Mercury was a god that was associated with games, and Mars with competition, and the sign of Gemini with youthfulness. And so there's a lot of qualities in the air around Mars and Gemini that have to do with childlike, playful, competitive games and playing of games and things like that. So that's in the air already. But then you're combining it with Neptune, and the Mars-Neptune combination is often associated, for example, in the tarot, it's often associated with a magician. And so there's and I've talked at length about Mars' square to Neptune earlier when it first went through the square. You could go back and listen to some of that and kind of compare notes with this one, because today we're going to turn the same jewel of Mars-Neptune in a slightly different direction. Anyway, so all of that was coming up for me as I was at Disney World. I was with my kids, playing a lot of games, doing a lot of very magical, childlike things. but also having to consider the difference between, say, something truly imaginal, uh, imagination, and the soul's need for imagination, and then say fantasy or mirages. Like, and what's the difference? Um, what's the difference between magic and, just consumerism? These are the kinds of things that I feel like if you're a sensitive person, you're going to be faced with when you go to Disney World, like in general. That's just like, I don't know, it's my experience. And I talked to other parents in the lines, there, and I witnessed and observed it, that everyone was sort of, a lot of people were dealing with some of the same distinctions. Sort of, it's kind of like a philosophical crucible going to Disney World. It's like you're being jammed into the melting pot of, like the American psyche, and you're just being swished around a bunch. You're like, I identify myself in this craziness and magic, and I want to get the hell out of it. So anyway, I have lots of stories to tell that will help illuminate, I think, these points. So, what is Mars retrograde in Gemini square to Neptune going to bring about? I think that a lot of what it brings about is the idea of a return to playfulness, a return to magic, a return to imagination. Specifically, the word playful, the playful imagination, playfulness and magic. These are really important themes right now. There has to be a sense of spontaneity with Mars and Gemini always. We'll pair it with Neptune and pair it with a retrograde, and we're talking about trying to get back to a more intuitive, playful, quickly adaptable, flexible, changeable, experimental kind of quality. Maybe one that takes us back in time a little bit, or that reverses our aging or something like that, if you get what I'm saying. So that's where I'm going with this. And I want to unpack in 5 different ways. So I've got 5 themes to watch for. Number 1, returning to playfulness and returning to imagination. Now, as I was just alluding to this, but let's go into it a little bit more deeply. So when Mars turns retrograde, it is suddenly going backward. And going backward for us often with a retrograde, any kind of retrograde, can mean going back in time, going back to something from the past, revisiting someone or something from the past. So I think that one of the major themes, especially given the connection to Neptune, which is a planet that is so deeply and intimately connected to fantasy, imagination, romance, and so Mars's retrograde with Neptune sitting close by, to me, is a symbol of trying to get back to something that is playful and fun and witty, maybe a little mischievous, but hopefully in a healthy way, and that makes us feel as though we're following the soul is leading us through life according to spontaneous, playful, magical, imaginative things. So, for example, when I was at Disney World, and one of the things you do is you go on all these rides that are, mirrors in some way of the movie. So we went on the Little Mermaid ride. Now, my girls really love the Disney animated film, The Little Mermaid. And you guys, probably most of you have seen it. So what I recognized when I was on the ride, for me, it's like, okay, it's the Disney ride, and I'm really doing this for my kids. I mean, I'm having fun, but like I'm doing this for my kids because it's very magical for them. But as I was perceiving them, like watching them have the experience of going on this ride where they could see like Ursula the Sea Witch and Ariel the Mermaid and Eric the Prince, and she's lost her voice so that she can become human, and Sebastian and the songs and everything. And I had this memory, and it was a memory of my childhood bedroom, and it was like I was able to I became fully aware of how big my bedroom was to me. Like as a kid, my bedroom was like a whole world. Now my bedroom is not that mysterious. It's not that big. It's not that. I knew every single nook and cranny of my bedroom, in large part because I had a whole collection of Star Wars characters. And they inhabited different parts of my room like they were different worlds, and they became different worlds. my sand-colored carpet was a desert, and I remember standing them on the, like the vent that was, it was like a metal vent or whatever the heat comes in, and like the graded vent, and I stood my characters on that vent, and I remember them looking, like, from my perspective, they're looking out over the carpet, and it was a desert. But it was amazing how it was like I entered into an alternate reality where I was just like I was transported back into my childhood, and how big and rich my imagination was, and how big my bedroom was. And it was just a really random memory, but I remembered so many things of how I played, and how, like a plant, like you can see plants in the background of my office back there. A plant could become like a giant forest jungle for my Star Wars characters. It was like that. So you probably had this too. I think most kids do. But what I was able to perceive in how my daughters were experiencing that Little Mermaid ride was that they literally felt like they were under the ocean. It wasn't like, oh, isn't it cool? It's just like the ocean. No, they went into the ocean. And that's what was so profound about it for them, was that this experience of seeing these characters, like, for me, that plant with my characters, like, it became that. And my imagination allowed it to become that. Now, from an adult perspective, we might say, well, well, it's really just a plant, or, whatever. But that's not how the soul works, right? And I think a lot about James Hillman, who said a lot about the soul. He said this. He said, for example, he said about relationships, love alone is not enough. Without imagination, love stales into sentiment, duty, boredom. Relationships fail not because we have stopped loving, but because we first stopped imagining. Now, what I was so appreciating about their experience of Disney World was that when we went on these different rides, they went into worlds. And those worlds are life-giving. They are fertile. And I say that because when we got back to our little hotel room and I watched them play afterward, it was some of the most creative, some of the most organic, interesting, funny things that I've seen. I mean, they're imaginative kids, but it was like, the plant got watered because they went under the sea. Do you see what I'm saying? Well, we need that throughout life. Imagination might look, and I'm not playing with my Star Wars characters on plants anymore. Maybe I should, right?
We all need to go to Miami from time to time.
And the world is still big. Maybe
Is
the
Miami
scope
my
has
Disney
changed
World?
a little
Maybe.
bit. Like, I'm not seeing my bedroom as this massive world like I used to. But the world is still there to be had and to be loved and to be reached into with my imagination. It is there to be a playful, mischievous place where I can explore. And if I'm not going under the sea, if I'm not finding a way for myself to go under the sea, and I'm thinking to myself stubbornly, well, that's just something for children, I'm going to be bored. And and boredom with Mars Neptune is often what leads to things like deception, deceiving ourselves or others, creating fantasies rather than following imagination. Now, a fantasy, by contrast, would be something that I'm making up that's preposterous, that involves deluding myself, or getting inflated in some way, blowing up my ego, making something completely into something that it isn't, because I feel bored, and rather than addressing my boredom and trying to find the spirit of imagination, I'm chasing mirages. So, for example, if you think about why a lot of love relationships fail, it's because without imagination, as Hillman says, love stales into sentiment, duty, and boredom. Relationships fail not because we've stopped loving, but because we first stopped imagining. It's like anything that you love, whether it's an instrument or a person or astrology, if you're not feeding it with imagination, it grows stale. And what is imagination? Well, I think it's the most elusive thing to try to define, but I saw it on my girl's face when they went under the sea. and they had no idea it was a ride because they didn't care. They didn't care to make the distinction. It wasn't that they were willfully denying that this is not a ride, it's real. No, they just forgot that it was a ride. And they were able to just immerse themselves in the aesthetics and the wonder of it. And I think that this world's most divine quality is that it is there to be loved with a deep, rich, imaginal quality. So, could this Mars retrograde with the square to Gemini be about returning or refinding our playfulness, our imaginative spark? I think that that is the thing that I took away from this the most, is that kids do it easily. And we can forget, adults can forget that we're imagining our lives along, or we're sick, we're soul sick because we've forgotten how to imagine. So that's number one. Number two, magic also happens off script. One of the things that I absolutely could not stand about Disney World is that, my God, everything happens there on a schedule. And it wasn't, I don't remember it being like that when I was a kid. Maybe it was, but now it's like you can look on it, you get an app, you have to purchase these bands that you wear, and then, you go on this app, and the app tells you which rides currently have which wait times, and what time of day to go if you prefer to have like a better wait time, like rather than 2 hours for one ride that's 3 minutes long, you will have to wait 45 minutes if you go at this time of day. That kind of thing. First of all, the wait lines are absolutely crazy. So there's this weird way in which Disney World takes you out of imagination in a very frustrating manner, by virtue of the fact that you have to stand in lines, and you're moved through like it's a machine, and then you get on a ride, and after this deeply impersonal, exhausting experience of standing for 90 minutes, then you're shuffled through a machine really quickly and you get off from it. Now, for the most part, my kids were occupied with things, so they didn't have that experience as much as I did. But I had that experience, right? So it was hard for me, even as an adult, to let myself go into the imaginal world of whatever ride we were doing, or whatever characters my kids got to meet, or whatever it was. Everything there at Disney World, in a sense, is on script. You stand in lines, you wait, you're moved through turnstiles, you flash a little thing, it turns green, then you can go on, and you can purchase for $25 extra per head per day a Genie Pass, which allows you to go into a lightning line where the wait time is reduced to 20 minutes or 5 minutes or whatever. But you have to schedule it, and then you have an hour, and then between that hour, your magical, wristband starts to glow. You better get to the magic. It's maddening. And so one of the things that I had to adapt to is, I was like, okay, I started off super type A, just ridiculous, being like, all right, here's the rides we got to get on. We'll hit this ride first, and then this ride, and it'll all be very magical. Just white knuckling the shit out of it. And my wife is like, she's 3 planets in Aries in the 10th house, and she would be kind of like, on board, but then we get to a certain point in the day. This is the difference, in my opinion, between Capricorn and Aries. You get a little bit of Mars Saturn mix with Capricorn, Mars being exalted in Capricorn, Aries and the Sun. Aries is more interested in freedom. So about halfway through the day, when this plan started getting exhausting, my wife would be like, why don't we freestyle this shit? Sorry, I'm swearing a bit. Why don't we freestyle and just see what happens? And I would be like, well, we won't get through all the magic if we do that. And it wasn't, I think it was probably day 2 or day 3 where I finally just gave up the Capricorn shtick. And I was like, you know what? This is ridiculous. The more that I let go of trying to follow in the turnstile, rat race, hamster wheels, lemmings falling off the edge of the cliff Disney experience, the more magical it became. seriously, we went to a restaurant, the fire alarm went off, there were like automatic gates like closing off certain parts of the restaurant, people like get out, and we were like running out of this restaurant that we were eating in. And then we ended up sitting on the ground, like on the ground outside of a restaurant with like a massive amount of people. But it was really, really interesting because my daughter, who has started to get interested in signs and omens, because I've kind of explained to her what they are, she was like, well, what does it mean? And then we were sitting there puzzling over like, what does it mean? And it was moments like that where like that was totally off script, and that was for me. And obviously my kids probably like the rides more than sitting out there, but my point is that like that event, there were many other events throughout the week where, because we started going off script and not trying to like accomplish everything on the list, that more and more the I think that the more magic started to happen. And by that, what I mean is there was fun had, there was, the entertainment was good or whatever, but there was a sense of spontaneity. Where will we go next? What will happen? Let's go over here. Oh, that'll be fun. And then, oh my God, the line's not that long over there. And blah, blah, blah. And it just, I started realizing that, my kids were having more fun when I was going off script and being spontaneous. And if there is a genie of the park, that's not one that you purchase to, maneuver your schedule around. The real genie of the park was spontaneity. And so the lesson that I took from this, and I kept thinking about as Mars is about to retrograde and square Neptune, is, can we let our lives go off script a little bit? It doesn't have to be in a big way. I mean, sometimes, I hear myself say that. I can imagine someone out there being like, yes, I'm going to move to Bali, like Rodrigo and I will get engaged, or like whatever the story might be, the amazing lover you met. It doesn't have to be that big. It could be, but what I mean is, when the next curveball comes, when the little curveballs that come, most of the time, the magic comes in through cracks that are small. For example, I specifically remember when we got stuck in line waiting for Dumbo. And there was this little waiting area. It was kind of like a circus tent playground that kids could play on while you were waiting. Literally, they give you like, the things at the restaurant they give you, and they're like, when we call you, it'll buzz. So we had like one of those. And they were like, when it's your turn to go sit in the elephant that flies, we'll buzz you. And we were so exhausted, and it was like such a bummer to we thought the line was short, and then it turned out it was really long, and they hadn't like marked the time outside, so we were like, okay, we're stuck in a circus tent waiting for our ride buzzer to ding or whatever. So as we're sitting there, well, first of all, we started playing games with our cameras and like taking silly pictures, and then we spotted across the tent a dad who was literally passed out on the floor like spread eagle. Just, I magicked out. And seeing him so completely surrendered to his like Disney exhaustion, I can't even tell you how much joy and like humor it brought me. And then I suddenly felt like I was in a very magical place, because it was like they were these spirits that were there that were guiding me and making me laugh. And all of a sudden, your thing is ringing, and then 2 seconds later, we're riding Dumbo. It was stuff like that where I just let myself go off script. And I realized that's where the magic happens. And similarly, and I watched my girls play over the week, both in the park and how they were inspired by what they were seeing and what they brought back to the hotel room and the way that they played at night. So much happens off script. So can you let little small moments in that are totally off script, and let those moments be like little cracks for the magical lights to enter through? I think that's a challenge for all of us to just pay attention to it and have fun with it. Number 3, nostalgia can heal, nostalgia can harm. Look, I will say that one of the,
Wow.
there's some real dark stuff at Disney World. Let's just say that. Like, I'm not here to slam or promote Disney World. It's just an experience that I had, and I'm pretty unattached to whether it's a good or a bad one. It was a lot of things. So one thing that I noticed, though, there is I do feel like if you walk around at Disney for a day, you are getting a pretty good picture of at least one good picture. There are many, but one good picture of like the American psyche. Um, I can't tell you how many adults that I saw there who were clearly there trying to recapture something that was lost. And that something that was lost, I suspect, is the same thing that I've been talking about, with my children, what I still need as an adult, which is magic and imagination. And I saw people that it is like they were there trying to get it back. But it was really hard to watch. It was hard because a lot of it involved um look, you can't it's a mistake in my humble opinion to think that imagination lies in the past when you were a kid. Like if I could just get back to my childhood bedroom, then I'd be imaginative again. I mean, there is a sense, great teachers in all traditions, people like the Dalai Lama, Jesus, have said, be like a child. And the kingdom of heaven is like accessible if you're like a child. And I think that that's specifically talking about imagination. William Blake famously said something like Jesus, the imagination. I think that the imagination is it's the eyes that we have to see and experience what is, in terms of the art, the beauty, the multivalence, the multidimensionality, with an appreciating, awe-inspired like love and reverence. So it's both what is and it's so much more. And like the soul needs those kind of experiences like all the time, and it needs it in mundane things. It can't just be like the big trip to Disney World. But I think that's what a lot of people are trying to do when they go to Disney World, maybe even including myself. I don't know. You go there and you're thinking, it's this, I need to like recapture something that I lost. And I don't know, maybe I'm judgmental and maybe I'm making this up, but I just felt like I was perceiving, not in everyone, but in like a fair amount of like adult population at Disney World, the desire to recapture something that is utterly personal, deeply individual, soulful, magical, and imaginative. That each one of us should be living a life that feels like a fairy tale. And I think that's true. I don't think that that's just the loudspeaker at Disney World, which was definitely there saying everything's magic. But I think that that is what life is for. I think that life is for the magic, for the imagination, for the love, for the romance, which includes pain, and it's bittersweet. It's not just, but that is exactly what I saw in many people that was lacking. Kind of like Disney will take away my pain, childhood innocence before trauma, imagination that I lost somewhere along the way. And if I can go back through this experience, right? And what was really interesting is just the look on people's face as at times. Now, there's people of all different socioeconomic brackets who like go to Disney World, but I saw a lot of people who like very clearly, maybe 2-3 years worth of like saving up to do this, right? And you could just see, I mean, I don't want to sound like a jerk, but you could just see like they're getting fleeced by how expensive everything is, and they're handing over something that's precious energy in their life that they've earned through hard work, and they're handing it over to recapture an experience that's super fleeting. It's not going to deliver the real soulful imaginative thing that they're trying to somehow return to. And I'm telling you, it was just palpable that there was a certain, and that could be true for people who had $1 million to spend. It's like it's not just it's not something I'm trying to, a distinction that I'm making purely along economic terms, but it was like, can I buy this? Can I package it? This will heal me. This will save me. This will return me to something. And you'd see, it's just crazy. At the beginning of the day, you see people entering the park with just this like hope, and at the end of the day, you'd see them walking away with like a like a balloon and a half empty sundae, and just looking kind of empty. And I felt so sad about it at times, you know? And I just kept thinking, nostalgia is so strong in the United States, at least in my opinion. We're a Cancerian, born on the 4th of July, so we're Cancers, and as a Cancer son myself, I know what like how strong nostalgia can be for Cancerians. And I just thought, wow, this is really, there's so much nostalgia here, and a lot of that nostalgia is super sad because it comes from trauma and brokenness, and all different kinds of injustices and unfairnesses and cruelties that exist. And people come here and they try to get back to that soul spark and living a rich imaginative life. I live in my own fairy tale, and we do. We each have our own personal mythology. But if nostalgia can, and I saw people, and I felt like myself included, the nostalgia for childhood was real there, and it put me back in touch with something that I'm really thankful for. And I think it did that for a lot of people, and in that sense I want to be fair and say that I think it is a magical place. But I also saw people just hoping for something, and just seeing their money being taken, and something that like they were longing for that just wouldn't be delivered. And I felt really sad about it. It made me feel, yeah, it was a deep experience. I could say a lot more about it, but I'll leave it at that and then make this point. When Mars goes retrograde, it's going backward. And as I was saying earlier, I feel like this is a retrograde with a youthful spring sign, a Mars retrograde in Gemini, connecting with Neptune in Pisces, a sign on the brink of spring. There's so much hope and desire and longing, and maybe of the type that is nostalgic, wanting to return to something. But in seeing this, I was reminded that the only way nostalgia can help us is by reminding us of the ever-living, ever-present spirit that was there, maybe at childhood or maybe some other point along the way. Maybe we lost touch with it. But the point is that you can't go back in time. You can't try to go back and make something. You can only get in touch with that spirit. That living spirit that was there then, that's there now. So if nostalgia can reinvigorate the imagination and sort of waken it back up and catch that spirit and open it up again, then it served its purpose. But if not, I fear that we will just be, like any other, cheap desire that, it's just a mirage. It doesn't take us there. It doesn't deliver in that way. Then I saw my own kids experience this, and I saw myself experience it and wanting to please them. They'd get out of a ride and the day would be ending, and oh, that was magical. I don't want to go back to the room. It's like, and then, they of course they hit you with every possible like sale on the way out, right? They've got all the shops and all the goods and candies and toys, and so as you're walking out, you have to sort of like walk through it in a sense. And as we were leaving, and my kids didn't want to lose
stuffed animals,
magic,
oh my God,
fireworks, all this stuff, reaching at these toys, and then me being like, well, I want them to be able to hold on to this forever, so I better buy them this thing. I'll tell you, I was really conflicted by it. I didn't think I would be. I feel like I'm a rather stoic guy. But no. So in this process of Mars turning retrograde in a square with Neptune, be careful of the desires. It comes up and it tells you, like, you can recapture something. You can hold on to something, for forever. And usually there comes a, like, if you just purchase this thing. And, it could give you some temporary pleasure, temporary satisfaction. But the real treasure is the living spirit. The spirit that carries us through and makes the magic. And that's always been with us. And so anything that can serve in reawakening it, recapturing it, helping us follow that spirit onward again, I think that's a good thing. Something reminds us of the past and where we were when we felt free. I think that's a good thing. But we can't literally walk backward into time and recapture something that was lost, especially since it's never been lost. Number 4 is you can't consume or purchase your way to soulfulness, and I sort of just accidentally brought this into point number 3. So I won't say as much about this, only that Mars is the planet, one of the planets that both Venus and Mars can be related to desire. Mars, Neptune can present you with the mirage. This is what I need. If I consume or purchase this, then it'll make me happy. You know, the Beatles said, "You can't buy me love." Finally, I talked a lot about Mars and Neptune in an earlier video in relation to loss and failure and weakness as things that are valuable to the soul. At the soul, surprise, surprise, the soul actually values loss, failure, disappointment, and weakness. Why? Not just because, well, those things are the means by which you grow stronger. You know, it's like Hercules just steps on top of everything, doesn't he? You know, no, because if you fail regularly, and this is something that I've been watching my daughter deal with, by the way, she's learning to play an instrument right now. And I'm watching her learn to develop a relationship with failure, which is important for anyone practicing anything. Guitar, for me, in my past as an instrument, astrology, learning astrology, and so many other things. It's not about, well, you know, failure's just part of the process toward perfection. From the soul's point of view, as far as I've understood, in my own life and what some of my favorite thinkers have had to say about this, when you cultivate a relationship with failure, loss, and weakness, it's only then that you can refine and diversify what strength and courage, persistence, perseverance look like and mean. You have to have an appreciation of some kind for failure and loss, in the same way that you have an appreciation for the bitter taste in food. If you have a more diverse experiential, existential palate, in other words, life is better. You have to have an appreciating capacity that's full-bodied. Now, one of the things that I think is really important, listen to a few other things that James Hillman had to say about imagination. Of course, a culture as manically and massively materialistic as ours creates materialistic behavior in its people, especially in those people who've been subjected to nothing but the destruction of imagination that this culture calls education, the destruction of autonomy it calls work, and the destruction of activity it calls entertainment. He also says we need to get back to trusting our emotional rapport with children, to seeing a child's beauty and singling that child out. That's how the mentor system works. You're caught up in the fantasy of another person. Your imagination and theirs come together. Those are two really good quotes. And the reason that I like Hillman quite a bit is because he has a way of, for example, in this quote, when he says that especially in those people who've been subjected to nothing but the destruction of imagination that this culture calls education, the destruction of autonomy it calls work, and the destruction of activity it calls entertainment. See, he's not saying that entertainment or autonomy or education are bad things in contrast to the imagination. What he's saying is that there is a way to make any of those mundane things imaginal. And similarly, and that we're maybe not doing a great job of it all the time. And similarly, if we want to mentor people, if we want to bring up children or future generations in the right way, that we have to enter into their fantasies, their imagination. We have to let their imagination be something that attracts us and that we move into with them, more so than educating them, telling them, teaching them facts. We have to share a landscape of imagination. We have to honor their imagination. And when we do that, education becomes possible.
Yo, what
because
up,
we're
Dick?
speaking in the language of that person's
Sorry, I
soul.
didn't reply to your
That's
messages,
the
my man.
language that they speak. So if
They
we want
were-
to educate, we have to speak.
It
in
was
the
like
language
an
of their
essay
soul.
question. What's up, man? That sucks,
But
dude.
anything is material for the soul.
That's shit.
That's the point. Absolutely
shit,
anything
dude.
can be material
Why
for
is
the
it
soul.
French?
So failure, loss,
Why
disappointment,
French?
any of these things can actually be the gateway
That's
through
crazy.
which
People are stealing bread? That's
engagement
crazy, man.
with the world, imaginal engagement with the world takes place.
And you know someone's gonna check the tape.
That's really, really important because Mars Neptune will also
Oh, in
sometimes
Montreal. Oh, yeah,
provide
you're
us
in
with-
Montreal,
again,
dude.
it
Oh,
can
yeah,
bring up
hell yeah,
boredom,
dude.
and it can bring up this
Hell
feeling
yeah,
that
très
things need to
bien.
be magical. And
Mon
they
ami,
need to
oui,
be,
oui,
bigger than life. And there needs to be some grand sense of mission, purpose, or calling.
Dang,
But this
dude.
is why the exact same planetary transit is often associated with disappointment, boredom, failure, loss, weakness. Because oftentimes the need for the great, big, epic mission is coming from an inability to have a relationship with an
Buffalo
acknowledgement
put you in
of
here? That's
boredom,
insane.
suffering, and mundane, boring things as a part of reality. It's like, no, I refuse for those things to exist. So I need
Montreal,
a huge
man.
epic
That's
narrative,
sick, dude.
right? Like that. So for magic to
It's
occur,
just down the road
we
from me.
need mundane, small little things.
I mean, like 200 kilometers.
Especially the
but
frustrating ones, or the hurtful ones, or the painful
you
ones.
should go see
We need to
Perfect
stay
Ace.
curious about them. Where there is loss, frustration, failure, or boring, mundane things, we need to be doggedly
Kyle, Settings
curious
Park,
about
nice.
them, so that they can open up and
Should ask
show us
Perfect Ace
something.
why he said that you
I want to
haven't
tell you a story
contributed
to close today. So,
much,
as we were
and
heading
then
to
you
the
get
airport,
affiliate like the next
my
week.
daughter was.
I guess I mean,
to
you
go
haven't
to
contributed much to the
Disney
Golden Light
my
community, which is
daughter had been hearing
insane
me
that he
talk
said
about
that.
signs and omens, as I
And
was
then you
telling
became
earlier.
affiliate the next week. It was amazing.
And she said, "Oh, I just saw a couple of birds sitting on a fence. Does that mean
Wasn't
something?
been
Is that a
yeah, dude.
sign?"
I'm sure.
And I was like, "Oh, it could
fucking
be. It's
Cirque
really
du
interesting that
Soleil.
you saw that." And I was like, I don't know. And I said,
Le
one thing I
Cirque
know
du
is that,
Soleil.
and then we kept going, and before I said this, actually, we kept driving, and then like both of my daughters started being like, "I see this, I see that. What does this mean? What does that mean?" And I was like, "Well, you can't. If you try
Parkour.
to pick out signs in everything,
You're gonna
then
use parkour in
nothing will
Montreal?
really mean much anymore. You just have to
Beautiful
kind of
day,
stay
too. It's
ready
nice and sunny.
observant and thoughtful, and then suddenly something will pop, and it will be from the normal, natural stuff around you. And when that thing pops, it could be like maybe a bird or a color, or I mean, it could be anything. And you'll just know that that's something different. So I was trying to explain to them, like, it's not just like, I mean, in a sense, the world is teeming with signs. Everything's a sign. Everything's, synchronicity. But, but I was also trying to impart to my kids the idea that, a sign is something special. You stay observant, and when it pops out, and it doesn't happen all the time, every single second. It's not something to get like sort of manically obsessed about. Because that would, that's not magic. That's just that's like sometimes it's 11:11. It doesn't mean a damn thing. And it has to be that way for the time that 11:11 really does mean something to mean something. So you get what I'm saying, hopefully. I hope it didn't sound too jerky. So at any rate, we get so I say, well, sometimes the things that happen that are signs are, they might even be like, they might even hurt your feelings, or they might even be like they might be challenging things or difficult things. And my daughter goes like, well, like what? And I said, well, one time I lost some prayer beads, and I was really, really distraught, and I lost them before I got on an airplane trip, and they broke all over the floor. And so, I gathered them up, and what I could, because I was like in the line, so I couldn't even gather all of them. Anyway, so I told my daughter that story, and she said, well, I said, that was, to me, that was a really big sign. Sometimes when you lose like a sacred necklace or a sacred, some piece of jewelry that's sacred to you, you know, when you lose it, it means that something new is going to come into your life, for example. And I said, you know what happened not long after that? Moonstone prayer beads
Dude, it's
broke.
such a good thread, man.
We had you.
People
That's a true
are
story.
upset, man.
And
People are upset.
So, you know, and to me, do I
It's
know for
like-
sure that, you know, but I
It's
had
like
always
Ace-
taken that as a sign that something was about to shift. And then very shortly after that, my wife got
Ace, like, he
pregnant.
played the runs. I mean, I don't know about Aztec. I don't know if
So,
he's fucking
I said,
quoting Aztec, but he
just pay
played the
attention.
free run. He
We'll-
played the
we'll see.
pelagic
I bet you
run.
we'll see a sign on our trip.
He has the
So-
untie on pelagic.
We are
Already.
on the airplane on the way home.
So,
from
like,
Disney
what's,
World,
like-
and
So
my
what?
daughter, suddenly, I hear her, like, I'm in the,
Torting.
they had a whole row, and I was sitting right in front of them, the girls and my wife. And I hear my daughter, like,
But if
kind
you're
of
the
flipping out, and I
champion in
turned
your
around,
horde,
and she,
you're
and
literally
my wife goes,
doing
she,
the least amount of
left
damage.
Lovey at the airport.
Because, like,
And I was like,
right
oh,
now,
no.
no, like, Irie
Lovey
is
her
not
little
going for
lamb,
a
his little
time to
lamb
bop
stuffed
Ace
animal.
right now. Irie's
And
going for
she
points
left
right
it,
now.
you know, gate 75,
I mean?
Orlando Airport.
If he bops Ace, that's
I
fucking
can tell you exactly where we were sitting.
2 for 1, but
And she left that stuffed animal she has had
Like-
since she was born. It was given to her by my
pretty
wife's
epic.
grandmother. She, you know, that thing was discolored, raggedy looking, but it was very dear to her. And I watched her. It was like she had lost, might as well lost a pet or a friend. She was, I've never seen my daughter that sad. It was really devastating. To the point where, you know, both my wife and I were tearing up because we were like, oh my God, we have a million pictures of her with Lovey. You know, I mean, that's like, she can't go to bed without it. It's like, that's her thing, you know? So I was like, oh God, this is terrible. And all of a sudden I remembered, my God, I told her this story about losing a necklace as I got onto a flight. And I just thought, okay, well, now is not, you know, the time. We're just gonna, but I'm gonna get to that later. So we were in the car on the way home, and she had sort of settled down by the time we got, you know, we flew all the way back to Minneapolis, and we were driving home. And I said to her, you know, remember what we talked about with the sign, and you know, you lost Lovey, and remember I told you I lost my necklace before I got on a flight? And she goes, oh yeah. And I go, well, maybe it's, you know, maybe it's a sign. Maybe something's going to change. Maybe something's about to come into your life that's really, really special and important. And she got really excited. She was crying on and off for the next 24 hours. But then she was talking about, she was really, really curious. Really curious. And at one point, I asked her, so, well, what do you think? She said, well, what will happen? What will it be? What will the new thing be? And I said, well, I have no clue. That's part of the magic, is you have to just kind of wait and find out. But I think it's a good sign. She was blaming herself. She felt terrible, and you know, and so forth. And then she started saying, well, why would something bad be like a good sign? It doesn't make any sense. And I was like, well, it can be both. It can be a challenging thing, a loss. You know, she said, I'm a bad mom. She's like, thinks of Lovey as her kid. She's like, I'm a bad mom. I left Lovey there. And I said, no, it's okay. You know, failure, disappointment, weakness. How could any of these things be good? She was asking. And I said, well, they can be both. You could have, maybe you messed up and left her there. It's a mistake, you know, but you can feel a little bit bad about that. It's terrible that you lost Lovey, and you can feel sad about it. And you can be curious about it because it may also be a sign. Finally, later on, she says, I think I know what it means. I said, well, what? She says, I think I'm going to lose my teeth. I go, wow, really? That's cool. She said, yeah, because the dentist said that I'm going to lose my teeth this fall probably and get my big girl teeth. And losing Lovey is painful, and losing my teeth will probably be painful too. But maybe that's a part of what's new. It's like, man, for a 6-year-old, you know, wow, I'm so proud of her, you know. So, anyway, I'm gonna cry if I start talking about it more. But I was just like, man, I'm so proud of you, you know. So she was having trouble sleeping at night, and I gave her my cross necklace. I have a cross that I wear, and I gave her this cross necklace so she have trouble sleeping, and so she could. I'll give her that sometimes when she's afraid. So anyway, so she comes down. I'm watching a basketball game. She comes down just sobbing. "Oh, what? What's wrong?" And she's like, "I'm really, really sorry, but I broke your cross necklace." I was like, "This is crazy. This is nuts." So I've had it for a long time, and it's special to me. I said, "Okay, well," and I just looked at her and I said, "Maybe this is a sign for me too. It's really interesting." Really interesting, Virginia. I'm sad that my cross is broken, but I'm not mad at you, sweetie. It was just an accident. And I said, now I'm gonna have to stay curious about this. And now you and I both have something to stay curious about, don't we? She was like, yeah, wow. What do you think it means? I said, I don't know. I don't know. So anyway, last part of this. We were reverse image searching with our pictures of Lovey to find this lamb, and it turns out that it was a lamb that my wife's grandmother bought at like a Christian Bible bookstore, and it was like the Lamb of God, a Christian lamb, and then my Christian cross. We had some moment where we lost these things together, and only to wait for imagination to find us again in a new way. It was really fascinating that we would have this experience together, as interestingly in our birth charts, Neptune is squaring my daughter's sun, which is a symbol of the father, while in my chart, Neptune is trining my sun. So we have simultaneous Neptune-Sun dynamics happening. And I took that as a beautiful sign. So right now, although I will probably hope, at some point, might find a new cross necklace, and we might find, we asked her, like, do you want a new Lovey? We can order one. She said, yeah, and I don't know if I'll like it or not. Because, yeah, of course, because it's not Lovey, She said the thing is that in all week at Disney World, she was asking, well, is this real? At different points, my 4-year-old not so much, but her at different points, she would say, this isn't real. This is just like a show, or this is just, she would make that distinction here or there. Although a lot of the time she was just immersed. Finally, she said, she told me, she was like, when I was asking her if we wanted to reorder her one of these, because we found them online, and she said, well, I don't know, because I know Lovey was just a stuffed animal and that this other one should be just like it. But Lovey was real to me. She said, like, I told her things that I couldn't even tell you and Mom. I was like, oh, wow. Like, well, you can tell us anything, sweetheart, and I consider us very open parents. We talk to our daughter. I feel like we talk to her about everything. But I was like, wow, that's really special that Lovey was like that for you. And she said, yeah, and it wasn't just a stuffed animal. I said, yeah, because in my opinion, Virginia, love is what makes things real. It's love more than anything that makes something real. She said, yeah, I don't know if I'll get, the new Lovey or not. I don't know if I'll get a cross or not. You know what I mean? So I'll leave you with this last thought, which is just that if we stay curious about our experiences, then even loss, failure, ineptitude, boredom, and the most mundane qualities of life can be portals through which signs, omens, messages, magic, and the spirit of imagination, that wellspring of life, can pour back in and lead us back into a feeling of being connected. So I wanted to talk a lot about sort of, magic today and how to capture that imaginative spirit. So Mars in Gemini, square Neptune. And I hope that these thoughts have been, not just some boring trip through some boring rant about Disney World, but that hopefully it's been as substantive for you guys as it has been for me. Yeah. I fully plan on making the tooth fairy a real thing around here. I'll tell you that. So I'll keep you posted. If she loses teeth this fall, I'll like post a picture or something. Anyway, hope you guys are having a great day today, and that this adds something to your preparation for Mars's long retrograde in Gemini with this big opening square to Neptune. That's what I've got for today. Take it easy, everyone. Bye. Hey everyone, this is Adam Ellenboss from Nightlight Astrology, and today we are going to continue our exploration of this week's Pluto transits by looking at Venus's upcoming square to Pluto. Yesterday, we took a look at the square from the Sun to Pluto, kind of broke that down. We looked at 5 themes to watch for. Today we're going to do the same thing with Venus in Libra square Pluto in Capricorn. So that is our agenda for today.
My name is Aaron Cairo. I'm a professional skateboarder from the San Francisco Bay Area, and today I'm going to talk to you about passion. So as you can see, my passion is skateboarding. That's pretty obvious, and I'm going to tell you the whole story, okay? Set that down. Before we get into this, I really wanted to define passion. What is that? What is this thing called passion? How do we figure that out? How do we find out what it is? So the Oxford Dictionary defines this as an intense desire or enthusiasm for something, or a strong and barely controllable emotion. Think about that for a minute. A strong and barely controllable emotion. I like to define it as the thing that you would do if you could do anything. What if money and time were not a problem? What would you spend your time doing? What would make you wake up in the morning every day and go, this is incredible? That is the thing that is passion. And that is what has driven me. It has driven me very far. It has driven me to do many crazy and wild things, as you saw in that video. Yeah, you might be a little crazy to do some of those things. So I'm going to give you my entire life story, starting from the very beginning, which is that haircut. It was me right on the right, that incredible haircut right there. So when I was 6 years old, I was in a car driving down the street, and I saw these 3 skateboarders, and they were going, and they turned into an alley. And I don't know what it was about that. It was the most simple thing, but I have this very distinct memory of deciding right then and there, that is cool, and that is what I'm going to do. It's kind of funny. I wouldn't have, at 6 years old, been like, that is my passion. But in a way, I kind of was. I think there's something very, very powerful about that initial impulse to decide to do something. It's a very interesting thing. And I think a lot of times it happens when you're very young. You know, you decide, I want to be a fireman. I want to be a dinosaur. You know, we could use some more dinosaurs, right? So there's this kind of funny thing that I will tell you about. In my school, growing up in this very small town of Red Lodge, Montana, this quote was on the wall. I think this quote is on the wall in many schools. It's a really famous quote. 2 roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. So in this small town of Red Lodge, Montana, there was a very exact path that you were supposed to follow, right? You go to school, you are part of the basketball team, and you are a part of band. And here I am, I decided I'm gonna be a skateboarder. And I got this skateboard video, and I would literally watch it 4 times a day, every day, and skateboard many hours every day. So you could kind of get the sense. But I always think it's so interesting because this quote is on the wall of the school. So somebody decided, this is a smart thing, let's put this quote up, and the kids should look at this, and maybe they should use that and apply it to their life, right? Something that you would think of. But it's kind of funny when you tell your teacher, who's very geared towards, like, you should play basketball and you should do these team sports, which is fine, there's nothing wrong with that. But it's an interesting thing when you tell them, I'm going to be a skateboarder. You know, and they look at you like you're nuts, or like, what are you doing? So some very distinct advices that I got. My band teacher, he said, if you keep riding that skateboard, you're going to make nothing of your life, you're going to be a nobody, and you'll end up being a total loser. I was like, okay. Maybe, you know, you start to get these doubts, right? The funny thing is, like, did those doubts come from you? Did they come from other people? Because I had that very distinct, like, that's what I'm going to do. And then the basketball coach said the same thing. If you keep riding that skateboard, man, you're going to make nothing of your entire life. But yeah, go back to this. 2 roads diverge in a wood. I took the one less traveled by. I kind of think the less traveled road is the road of passion. And I think it's a very interesting thing because I talk to a lot of people, tons of people, and I ask them, what do you do in your life? And they say various things. I'm a baker, or whatever it is, right? And I say, okay, is that what you really, really, really want to do? Is that what you wake up in the morning and you go, today's going to be awesome, it's going to be the best day, and I'm going to do everything that I want? And they go, no. And I say, well, okay, what is it that you would want to do? And they say, well, I've always wanted to be a writer, you know? And my response is, right, you should be a writer. That's what you should do, right? Interesting world. So, okay, so I had these times in my life where I hit these things, and you got to kind of get the context here. Like, I'm starting to go, I love skateboarding, that's what I'll do, but all of life is sort of telling me, don't do that, you're going to be a loser, it's not going to work out, etc. So I continue skateboarding. This is sort of me jumping over the hurdles of people telling me not to, right? I graduated high school with very good grades. I had a full ride scholarship to any school in Montana. And I told my dad, if I don't go to Vancouver, British Columbia to go to school, because they have like really good skateboard spots there, I'm not going to go to school at all, right? And so I threw away the scholarship and I went to Vancouver, British Columbia. Spent a lot of time skateboarding. I still got good grades, you know, I was good at school. I could study and I could do that, and it was really good. But after a year of university, I thought to myself, if I don't go all in on this passion, I don't think I will ever forgive myself for that, you know? I don't think I'll ever let that go. And what would I do if I got a career in film, which was the secondary, was the plan B, right? Plan A is become a skateboarder, and plan B was, if that doesn't work out, you're into film because you like skateboard videos, so you could do film, right? So I was taking film, but you see, it was the secondary goal. And I thought, if I don't go all in on this, I just won't, I don't know, if I grow old, am I going to look back and always regret that? I could not do that. So after 1 year of university, I dropped out, and I moved to the San Francisco Bay Area, where I skateboarded harder than I had ever skateboarded in my entire life. Like, to say that I gave everything is a drastic understatement. I literally gave it everything. I had to work to make money. I worked at these jobs that I hated. I worked at KB Toys, and no matter what the person bought, you had to ask them, do you want batteries with that? And they would usually say, no, a bouncy ball doesn't require batteries. And you'd say, well, I'm sorry, I have to ask that. You know? But again, it's kind of a funny thing because you work these jobs to sort of pay for your passion or put that off to the side, right? So I'm in San Francisco. I'm working so hard on my skateboarding. I'm doing really good. I'm skateboarding better than I ever have in my entire life. and I pick up some incredible sponsors. In the world of skateboarding, the way that you make it a career is you get sponsors, and then they pay for you to do things. This is how the industry works, right? So I get some really good ones, and I think, wow, this is it. I have a very clear path. I'm going to be a professional skateboarder. My life goals are really coming together at this point. And then I walk into my sponsor to get my boards. I pick up these free boards, and the guy says, you know, there's been some budget cuts. You're off the team. This was like more than I could deal with, right? Having the teacher tell me that you're going to be a loser is one thing, but losing all of your sponsors overnight was like devastating. I was done. I was like, this is the end of the road. This is the end of my passionate push. But if I didn't have so much passion, I would have given up right then and there. And I'll be honest with you, I nearly gave up. And I did this thing that was kind of funny because I was filming a lot at that time. I had a lot of skateboard footage stocked up. So I took it all and I put it together to this really weird music, and I put it on this website. At the time, it was this very small website. Maybe some of you have heard of it. It's called YouTube. And I put that video up. It was 2005. YouTube had just started, and the video ended up getting 350,000 views. And I was nobody. Nobody had heard my name. They didn't know who I was. And at that time, I think it was the most viewed video on the internet, period, for skateboarding. And I was like, wait a sec. I just lost all of my sponsors. I have no career. And now this? Like, what do you really make of that? It's kind of hard to figure that out. And I still have these ideas hitting me, right? You're a skateboarder. That's what losers do. You can't do that. That's not a career. So, you know, but that sort of like lit the fire again. Like I think
Yo, Gamer Girl, DR, what's up?
I think some people had it and they went off.
What?
And
How's it going?
Like the making money or the various life things, but it's still there, and it doesn't matter how old you are, who you are. You can always.
That's awesome. How are you? I'm doing.
It is there. I am 100% convinced that everyone has.
What's up, homie? Yo.
So, the journey of YouTube began. Yeah, I put that video up, got a lot of views, and then a couple years later, YouTube started becoming a thing where you could make videos, and it would be like kind of a career, right? Not a total career, but kind of.
Yo, what's up, Diara?
But for me, it was an incredible.
Miss y'all, fam. I've been just working a lot. That's all good. No worries. Let me turn this down a bit.
I didn't have to rely on search. I didn't have to.
That's cool. You want to know something crazy? You want to know something really crazy? And like, this is really gonna sound weird, and I'm not like a creep or anything, but I swear to God, I searched your name, Diara, for the first time on let's see if you were on Facebook like yesterday or 2 days ago. In like, and I'll be honest, I didn't search for. I was the first time I ever did that, but I haven't searched your name in like. Since you last streamed. Yeah, I know, it's crazy. Ain't not sound like a creep. I think it's more like some sort of like. What? I have this fucking mic here. Hold on, it's really bad. Set up. I know, it's crazy, right? It's like some sort of fucking crazy spiritual coincidence, you know?
I had to learn how to manage finances. I didn't know how to do any of that, but because I knew.
Did you pop up? No, I searched your name. Like I just like stalked. Yo, did you know Dick is affiliate now? Yeah, you should fucking, if you're not following him yet. Should pop up. Should have sent an ad. Yeah, that would have been weird and creepy though. But it's like, yeah, thanks. So nice. Yeah, sure.
So, and then
I guess that's not weird and creepy.
None of this is planned.
What's up?
We're going to put this Christmas tree on the
house.
and we're going to shoot it.
That's great. Congratulations. That's really good. That's the best time. I'm glad you got in. I'm glad you got in the market and you have it while you have, like, while we're fucking before the Great Reset, you know, and the, the attempt, fucking digital currency implementation that they're trying to fucking put us in pods and shit, you know, the whole ordeal.
One of the things that I live by is don't go to sleep at night without having learned at least one new thing that day, right?
Congrats,
Another thing that I
yeah.
want to say is that in
Yeah, he does the ASMR. He did it. He did it. He actually did it. The madman.
This is a skateboarder that has no legs. Okay? If you feel like I can't do this, just imagine going, I'm going to be a professional skateboarder, and you have no legs.
It's fine for now.
Right? So it doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter how big the barriers are. You can jump over.
Marcus nuts.
You can go through it. You
Holy
can
shit.
edge.
7.8?
It's going to be okay.
Oh my god,
The
man.
next
Or not
point
man,
I
but
make
oh my
is
god.
once you find your
Comma.
passion and you start creating on this,
Man,
please,
that's
please
2008
give back to the
numbers.
community. In
That's
fact,
like
I think
foreclosure
giving back to the
numbers.
community is how you're going to actually
Talking
make
8%?
out of your passion. Doesn't matter what it is, right? Generally speaking, giving back to that community is what is
Right?
going to create
Because that was about the
that
percentage that
financial
brought down the
exchange.
entire housing
So
market in
we do a
2008.
lot of programs with
I think it was like
kids.
8%.
Our main thing is teaching. I think I've taught more people to skateboard all over the world than any
I wonder if
ever.
I don't know if a lot of the mortgage. I don't know if a lot of the variable rate mortgages were.
So this sort of passion
If
thing,
there was like
the
wiped out, or if there was like
idea that I think that is worth
the renegotiation of mortgages that avoided this
the first part is
variable
find your
rate
own
mortgage,
passion
or if they made the
rekindle
same
that
mistake
passion.
again.
It is there, I guarantee it. And use that. And when people tell you, you can't
Yeah,
do that,
it wasn't that high.
kindly
It wasn't high
ignore them.
percentage.
Try to understand their point of
It was
view,
crazy because
right?
they were
My
just.
band teacher
I don't know if
wanted
they
me
made the same
because
mistake
I was
again.
good at playing
They might have.
drums. He wasn't
Just
just
approving
a
mortgages for people that aren't able to pay.
resentful toward him at all.
I'll pivot.
So, do your passion no matter what the circumstance is.
Yeah,
no matter
yeah.
what
Thanks
the
for the
variables.
emotes, man.
You just make it work. And the second point that I want to make there is try and help other people. You'll find these people, especially people that are
Nice. How are things with you,
just
gamer girl?
graduating high school and they're going
Glad to,
university and they're like, I'm not
so glad
really
you're
sure
here.
what I want to do with my life. You can ask them, what would you do if you could do anything? And you usually get a very straight answer. Well, I would become a professional piano player. And you just simply say, you should do that. And they will look at you and go, do you really think so? And you'll say, yes, you absolutely have to do that. And more often than not, you'll get this. Wow, you're the only person that has told me that. You're the only person
Okay,
that
added.
believes that I can do it. Well, I not only believe that you can do it, I know that you can do it because I
Or rather, request sent.
do it. So if we just simply do that and we push this idea forward, that
A G stream since like
will
March.
change
All in a way.
the world.
That's okay.
Thank you
No
very
stress. Yeah, I'm back at home, back in Canada. Back in Canada. As you know, I guess you probably knew or saw that I went to Miami for like 6 months. It was crazy. That was a crazy time. That was a fucking really crazy time. Started a job down there. Then I got fired. Alright, let's watch more TED Talks. I just other than getting buff. Oh, thank you. That's so nice. That's so nice. Should we flex? We'll flex. This would be a little weird. I mean, I might as well. Sure, I'll flex. Since you said getting buff. Let's do it. Trying to get big. It's been a while. This is like Russia. Why are we sitting in skate park? Sure, let's watch this. Whatever. That's nice, you gamer girl. Thank you. That's so nice. And you're getting fit too. I saw some of your photos on Facebook again. Not to be creeper.
My name is Josh Mims. I'm a skateboarder. I went to Temple Law School back almost 15 years ago. My story starts with one of these trees. If you have ever been out on the sidewalk in Philadelphia? And for me, deep in the deep south, you see a tree, and the sidewalk has been paved over it. The asphalt has run up next to it, and the tree keeps growing.
Nah, backtrack since then? No, no way. Not true.
And if you're a skateboarder, you tend to look at it and say, man, that tree made something.
If you did, that's okay also. Obviously.
So when I was about 11 years
Man,
old,
what's new? I what's it called?
I'm from Lancaster, South Carolina.
I got my life insurance and investment
One day, out skateboarding
license
with some friends, we noticed
for Ontario. So yeah, I'm trying to become like a financial advisor. I'm licensed in Ontario.
it's not a humongous
I can sell I sell life insurance to replace mortgage insurance.
and the urban environment.
Hell yeah, nice. Thank you. Aw, thank you. Yeah, it was a hard exam. I did it in Miami
Erupted out of
for Ontario and Canada. Yeah, thank you. I'm still learning it. I'm learning all about
You can be out on a
investments and mutual
get off
funds
the
and
parking lot,
equity funds
skate,
and
and go after
bonds versus stocks
I
and
stuck with this idea.
segregated funds and annuities and like 75% return guarantee is like better price and like 100% return guarantee, which is like could be very high, and
But I knew it was gonna
different reserves. Like the U.S. has much higher reserves
Philadelphia.
due to the larger number of people and larger size of the insurance companies, so they can provide more of a safety blanket and provide better guaranteed rates, whereas Canada's a lot more variable, but our economy is much more conservative. So even though it's variable, the overall thing is more conservative. While the U.S. is super variable, but they can guarantee fixed rates because there's so much money.
But architects in the 60s, they had this feeling like we're going to use massive materials. They're going to be
Yeah, sure. I just started. I can. Yeah,
Don't worry.
yeah.
That's what they thought. But as it
Yeah,
turns out,
well, okay, my supervisor, I opened some mutual funds that were four
by the 1990s,
funds. I forget. I can pull them up. I can pull the names of the four funds because each. Anyways, and he suggested 86% stocks and 14% bonds, which is a very aggressive market approach. Because that's like really into like investments in. I forget the funds. Loomis Sales was one. LOOMIS SAY right in the chat. Oh yeah, and he did 50% Canada. Since we're in Canada, if the U.S. market goes up, our Canadian dollar goes down, which is really crazy to think about. So we do like 50% Canada and like 25%, 30% U.S. Even though the U.S. is like one of the biggest markets in the world. It is the biggest market in the world. And 20% international. Loomis Sales. I forget the other ones. I gotta digging deep in my brain. How about you? Are you still driving the bus? The limo? Did I see you driving a limo? That's awesome. That's baller. It's a really boring TED Talk. I should put up the fucking... What's it called?
This is just the same as the rat problem and homeless problem.
Hell yeah.
Solved.
That's awesome. Too much.
So-
Oh no.
Skateboarding was prohibited at all times in JFK Plaza, fine up to $300, and forfeiture of your skateboard. Now, I was a law student at Temple University when these
Oh, you're doing too much?
were erected. And a friend of mine came to me and he said, Josh,
Too much shit,
boy, I
yeah.
think you
I'm
know
looking for work. I have this license, but it's like,
And
it's not a salary.
he said,
It's not a salary job. It's all commission, so it's just kind of like a side job until I get it
and I knew that
going.
Love Park was special. Nobody makes
I have a business card. Want to see my business card? It's cool. You can, like, I don't want to be like the weird recruiter guy, but you can join the company too and learn about finances and stuff too. I don't really recommend it. I mean, I'm a terrible recruiter. If you want to learn finances, yeah, It's just like a lot of work. Ready to quit and start off.
Life is good. It's a beautiful day.
OF.
They're social. They're in a place
OF.
where
What's
positive
OF?
things in the middle of their city. What more do you want? And so as the
All my
movement
bills.
against skateboarding was happening,
OF.
there was a movement for skateboarding at Love Park that was also happening. And a lot of people started to get together and get organized around this idea that skateboarding should be legal at Love Park. But even if it wasn't going to be, what were we going to do about skateboarding in Philadelphia? And there was a lot of people who were coming together and saying, you know, skateboarding it's part of what makes our city attractive to young people. And, you know, we want people to stay in our colleges and universities.
Yeah, so like we're like an insurance agency. This guy. Oh, legit. I know with the card. Literally. This is actually a bootleg card. I made it. I stole the design because the one from World Financial Group, they don't have a photo on the card, so I stole the design and I made the bootleg ones.
It even felt that way.
Yeah.
And does everybody know who Ed Bacon is?
So I mean, you know,
Now, if
it
you
will
don't,
build
Ed was
residual
our
income in the
city planner
future.
from
I
1949 to 1970. A lot of things that we love
I'm
about
really slow with
Philadelphia,
it.
Ed was behind. A lot of things that we
I went to
hate.
Vegas and everything. I went to Las Vegas.
A lot of things that we love about the world.
In
like
July,
Ed
I went to Las Vegas
came from Ed Bacon.
for the
But Ed was also the author
For the
of
conference?
Love Park.
So I put a big investment. I put a big investment into it. Now it's time for me to actually like work and do it. It's not easy. It's really not easy at all. I mean, because it's all about talking to people and
that's something to think about. That's how far ahead. So when we think
I guess like people do need retirement planning and like life insurance, and because one of the cool things that we do is we change mortgage insurance with life insurance, so that way one, you get greater coverage for usually less money, two, you get much better insurance policy, possibly with even critical illness or disability insurance, or yeah, you can have you can set up, have like annuities and everything, and even if anything happens, you get that money, not the bank paying off the house or your whatever, your fucking beneficiary.
So with a little help from our friends, we started Franklin's Pain Skate Park Fund. And
That
Franklin's
subtle
Pain
off-white coloring, tasteful thickness of it. Has that watermark? Oh, the bootleg version. Yeah.
Franklin's Pain Skate Park
Yeah.
Fund was the genesis of a lot of young people.
Oh, for sure. It's definitely not the same.
Non-skateboarders. It became a
Oh, American Psycho.
of believers in Philadelphia.
Oh, I don't know that line.
And that was that skateboarding was that relationship to our beliefs.
I'm a newbie.
Because skateboarding showed, again, that potential.
Business
for our
card scene?
city to
Oh,
be
shit.
the nexus for the creative class
Should we pull
of
it
the
up?
21st century. And so we started thinking about what kind of public spaces, what public space for skateboarding really meant.
Oh no, I don't want to. I can't play any movies on. I don't want to start playing movies on stream because
Was kind of a lost
my friend and streamer Ninja Lifestyle, he got friggin'
And so we had
temporary
people that
banned for playing a hockey game on a stream. It was crazy.
Top skate park in Fishtown. This was in 2000.
No, show off their business cards.
And it's been a huge success.
Yeah.
Kids from 8 to about
Hockey game, I know. It's not even like friggin'
about 8 to 14 have started
music.
their skateboarding careers at Pop's Playground. Everything's about this high.
Yeah,
And
it's
what
crazy.
we found out as we started building skate parks was nothing needs to be bigger than this. If you want to get rid of the liability issues and all the things that cities worry about, make it this tall. Because I'm an old skateboarder.
Nice, thanks for asking. I really appreciate
I love
that.
skateboarding, and that size just makes it easier for me to have a good time. Whitehall Skate Park happened next up in the Northeast in 2010.
It's so nice.
Recreation Playground, which is
I'm really glad
on
you're
the course right now,
you're here and saying hey and everything.
developed in 2012.
Yeah, I do want to
West
start
Philadelphia was
playing more
a lot
GoldenEye, streaming GoldenEye.
recreationally.
It's been well, nice.
And then
Yeah,
finally,
for
Grace
sure.
Skate Park that
Hey, we
just
miss you.
finished this last year on the Grace Ferry Trail segment of Schuylkill Bank. And full disclosure.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm gonna be playing it again soon.
I'm busy building things, and I got a chance to
I've been pretty. I mean, I have a little cold now. That's why I was working out today.
My boss is just figuring this out.
Should we do some chin-ups?
But the real hero of this story is supposed to be true
We'll do chin-ups, I
public
guess.
space for skateboarding. And what that entails, of course,
That's
is
cool. Driving a
public
limo, that's
space,
baller.
right?
That's really
Skateboarding
cool.
is just a metaphor for all
I'd love to
the
have a job like that. I really would.
Philadelphia to be the most creative and transformative place.
Not even memeing. I'm looking
So
for
we weren't there
jobs.
yet.
I used to deliver pizza. That was a good job.
Back in 1927, you can see
That was a fun job, man.
the city
Man,
was a
woman.
black
That was a
and
very
gold,
fun.
of
That was a
course.
very fun
That's how it
job.
was in 27. But it was a gritty place. There were a lot of bridges. There was a lot of industry. But way up here in that little circled area was a little site up next to our brand new art museum
Okay, I'm gonna do some chin-ups.
that was going to hold some promise for the future.
Yeah, it did convince me to get
Next
the
is
chin-up
right where
bar,
George
the
Ellis'
power tower.
Famous suspension bridge was. Another Philadelphia first, George Ellis suspension bridge, built in 1844, was the first suspension bridge in the United States that would hold train traffic. In this case, a trolley pulled by a horse. Later, a trolley being powered from a powerhouse that was on our site. And there's that powerhouse in 1923, tucked away behind the waterworks. And you can see our wonderful parkway, another behemoth of architectural planning transformation that Philadelphia had within it. And so it all seems like it might be the right spot for something else transformative to happen. And so by mid-2000s, here it's just me and my executive director at the time, Claire Labor, but actually past 1,000 had supported us to get to the point where this broad, wide open site, right in the middle of
bench.
Philadelphia, probably the
Yeah,
best
I do.
state
I got an elliptical too.
through all this work, sort of has suddenly fallen into our lap.
I got a free elliptical too.
Where the mayor's office said, okay, Josh, you guys can build your skate park. Raise $4.5 million, and you can build your skate park.
We got the parallel bars too.
I don't know if anybody's
Aw, thank you.
Yeah. I found
Parallel
that
bars. Oh my gosh.
but with a great help from a great number of supporters, including city officials, parents of skateboarders, people who didn't know anything about skateboarding until I told them one day that skateboarding is related to maintaining our creative class in our city. All kinds of politicians, former governor, senators, you name it. People started to buy into this. And so, by 2006, way back when we were still working on those other small projects, we were trying to keep pushing this thing through, percolating, if you will. And we had ended up with a plan that looked like this. You may see that this is a familiar look from an aerial standpoint. It looks a lot like Love Park. Now, I'm not saying that we could have just left Love like it was, and everybody could have skated there, because I'm glad to have created a new nexus in public space. But nonetheless, the idea worked, and we're going to stick with it. And you can see, we'll go back and forth once. There we go. There we go. There's some things about this that just work. That radial design, that connection in each direction out, so that you have a multimodal connection between important points that you want to get and move. It's a public space. It just happens to be skateboarding. Again, it's our while we were in the midst of getting this,
Oh my gosh.
we finally raised most of our money.
Also, Dick and I, we actually met up and we did a workout stream together. Yeah. A calisthenics stream in the park in Toronto. It's on my channel. It's a highlight. It's one of my. I think it's one of my playlists. I think it's like calisthenics park, whatever. If you want to see, Dick and I do a calisthenics stream. It's pretty epic. He's wearing his mask. He's a very pro mask guy.
October of 2012,
No, I'm just joking.
we broke ground. The way
But no, we actually did do a stream. It was amazing. It was in Toronto.
And we had our senators, we had our state representatives, we had our wonderful board of directors, folks from the mayor's office, and we got into the ground. We started digging, and you'll see out in the distance, familiar site, large oak tree. We kept working into the spring. Again, you can see some large oak trees in the distance, foreshadowing. Again, looking back, now you can see that view of the art museum that you were just showing a little taste of back in the black and white world in 1927. And again, we're so close now. We're so in the middle of everything. We're connecting the Schuylkill River Trail, 1 million people a year. We're connecting the Benjamin Franklin Parkway, 2 million people a year. And we're connecting Kelly Drive, 100,000 cars. Excuse me, a week. Jeez, 100,000 cars a year wouldn't be that. But 100,000 cars a week is something. We're at this nexus point where we're connecting everything. And what are we connecting with? We're connecting with the city. What we're supposed to. And so finally we're done. And just like we thought, we had the sneaky suspicion that if we built it, they would come. And so the day we opened it, you can see we've got hundreds of people out there. I was out there last weekend. There were hundreds of people out there. And the beautiful thing about this space is not that it's there and there's kids skateboarding. That's great, but that's not worth spending $4.5 million in 50 years. Right? We've got to, something else has got to come out of it. And what came out of it was exactly what we hoped for. Young people, older people, baby carriages, wheelchairs, bicycles, skateboards, rollerblades, everything that moves itself through our city and through our spaces and wants to connect to our riverfront and wants to connect to our art museum and our beautiful park. We all want to hang out here, just like we thought. This is what Philadelphia is supposed to do, right? This is what we do in the city. We create community. We transform our spaces in new and different ways every 50 or 100 years. We keep building on this wonderful idea that William Penn had, the wonderful nerdiness of Benjamin Franklin. My boy. Don't forget Thomas Paine, though. We keep building on this legacy, and it's so magical that skateboarding somehow came out of that legacy in the 20th century. And then the way that it connects back to this wonderful creative group of people that I'm the last speaker from a group of. It's been a great day.
The bar and everything, it makes it fun, you know what I mean? Instead of just like lifting weights is fun, but like this stuff makes it nice and fun.
It's Franklin Payne Street, it's Philadelphia Street, but at some moment, it's my tree. It's a tree that I started with when I was 11 years old. It's got a skate park built around it because the skate park this time is so big that it can't just abut up and be our original tree at the beginning. Thank you.
We may be sitting here saying that, hey, it might not be great to be self-employed, but if you love what you do and you just want to do it for yourself because you don't want to work for anyone else, that's okay. Sure. But just know what you're building, right? And so if the idea is to then be able to retire when you're 40 or, do this for 20 years and retire and you don't scale an actual business, you're going to be stuck in that same place. The challenge is most entrepreneurs don't decide if they want to be the entrepreneur, if they are the manager, or if they're actually the talent inside of the business. And if you don't architect that in the beginning, you're going to actually build something that you're probably going to hate, which is what I see most people do in business.
All right, welcome back to the show, everybody. I have a friend here today who's extraordinary. Here's what we're going to talk about today. Getting rich. And when I say getting rich, I mean rich in every area of life, not just financially, although we're going to go there a lot. We're going to talk about building wealth today. And this woman that I've asked to be here today is extraordinary. Picture this. You grew up in a trailer, right? Not necessarily a background that screams wealth. Her dad was a mechanic. Her mom cleaned houses. She's 19. She decides, I'm going to go into business for myself, and makes millions and millions of dollars. By the time she's 40, she retires a couple different times. And she's learned how to build wealth. She's also learned, though, how to build a life while doing that, because it wasn't always that way. And so she's got a new book out that you can pre-order right now called Wealth Habits, 6 Ordinary Steps to Achieve Extraordinary Financial Freedom. And she is extraordinary. Candy Valentino, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's truly an honor to be here.
It's an honor to have you. We've known each other because I went out and did an event for you, and we have a bunch of mutual friends. How did you get rich? How did you get wealthy?
I had to sum it up. It's a lot of hard work. Right?
Yeah.
Like being okay with making mistakes, being okay to take the next step even when I didn't know what that was going to entail. Understanding that you got to have the belief and you got to be okay to fail and make mistakes. And for me, it was just about the reality of what was existing in my life was no longer something that I was okay with. So I was okay with taking the step in fear, because that unknown is, most people, it kind of keeps them where they are. But for me, it was an exciting opportunity to create something new, and it's really about playing the long game.
What do you mean by that, playing the long game? Because you were so young when you started, so how was it a long game?
Yeah, so I think a lot of times people so focus on instant gratification, right? What can I get right now? Like, okay, I made a little bit of money, let me go buy the car or the boat or all these things. And for me, I had a goal early on that I watched my dad in his auto mechanic shop for my whole life. I got dropped off there every day. Unlike most people learn dance or soccer, I got dropped off at my dad's garage. So I was answering the phone and typing on the typewriter invoices and doing my homework in this little 13-inch TV watching cartoons. And so I saw him work so hard every day and miss out on so many things when I was a kid. And I thought, you know what, I want to do this differently. I don't want to be self-employed. I want to build a business. And I want to be able to have freedom so that I can go where I want, when I want, with whoever I want, and help as many people as I want.
You did it, and the thing about you that's interesting, because you already made one distinction I want to talk about, because I don't think most people really understand the difference. This is a woman who was named in the 40 under 40 list, one of the top 50 female entrepreneurs. I mean, she had a ton of accolades happen. But most people don't make that distinction between being self-employed and being a business owner. There is a difference, and there's a lot of people running around who are self-employed who think they're business owners.
That's right.
So let's just start right there with some really good content. Like, what is the difference between those two things?
So being self-employed, you have to show up. Like, a lot of times people think, oh, I'm building a business. No, you just created a job for yourself, because if you don't show up to the team, to the brick and mortar, for the workshop, for the webinar, you're not going to make money. Building a business is building an engine that can continually print money while you go do what you want. Be with your family, go to the soccer games, hang out with your friends. And so I saw what my dad missed, and I wanted to make sure to do it different. And I knew that I needed a team and I needed scale in order to do that, so that I could go to Starbucks in the middle of the day or fly here to be able to see you and do this interview. But most people end up building themselves a job, which turns into a cage. And then they end up getting these golden handcuffs because they have pride and responsibility, and they're making money, and they don't realize that they've just traded their freedom away to basically to become an entrepreneur, but really they're just an employee of this new entity that they own, and it owns them.
Yeah, that is like so true, because I've been self-employed only. You really don't even have one job, you have like 11.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it's almost worse than being an employee, because if you're an employee, you can actually leave and you're not responsible for the light bill.
Right.
You don't have to pay the rent on the office and the other stuff like that. So a lot of people listen to this. Now, what would you say? We're going somewhere I wasn't sure we would go this early, but so someone's listening, so they're like, you know what? I kind of am self-employed. Most of my income or all the responsibility in my business is incumbent upon me. Should they look at doing
for sure. I don't know how you weren't about before. I'm sure you were before. I don't know.
What would you say to them?
So
I didn't
really,
take it
you know,
away.
I feel context is important. We may be sitting here saying that, like, hey,
I was confused. I
it's
saw it.
not
I'm like,
great to be
whatever.
self-employed, but if you love what you do and you just want to do it for yourself because you don't want to work for anyone else, that's okay. But just know what you're building, right? And so if the idea is to then be able to retire,
Because I've been
when you're
gone.
40,
No.
or, you know, do this for 20 years and retire.
Remember when I was trying to get affiliate and we wouldn't.
Stuck in that same place.
I said to
So
not
if
ban
someone's
the
sitting here
bots
going,
because
"Oh gosh,
we
I
thought
work
the
with
bots would add
entrepreneurs," and they're like,
viewership.
oh gosh, I didn't realize I was building myself a job. What do I need to do? How can you replace
Again, I think I
yourself
diversified too early.
right? And there's a couple
I was
ways you
doing like
can
half
truly
workout
do it.
streams, half
We're
golden
all
night
about
streams. It was just
tactics, right?
not.
So
It was
we
not
can
sustainable.
Take a look at what you're currently earning in your small business, being self-employed, and figure out
Oh,
what
the memories.
you
Those are the
actually
days.
make as an hourly rate.
Yeah.
And you can do this monthly or annually. Figure out how many hours you're working, what you're actually bringing home, your net profit,
that was
or
funny.
your wages, depending on how you pay yourself out of your business.
And yeah, thanks
Figure
for all
out
the
what that
raids.
hourly
You
rate is.
freaking helped me
And
get
the fastest
affiliate
thing
big
you can
time.
do is find who can you
That's adding
hire
viewers.
to do
Yeah,
one of
exactly.
those roles, whether it's answering the phones or email,
Even if
or
it
working with
bumps
customers
up
or the actual
the-
services or products. And how can you
Even if you go to
replace yourself in
Goldeneye
the
and you see
business?
like the top
And then you
viewer,
just do
if
that
the bots
over
are
and
there,
over and over with each one of those roles, so now you have a team. The challenge is most entrepreneurs don't decide if they want to be the entrepreneur, if they are the manager, or if you're actually the talent inside of the business. And if you don't architect that in the beginning, you're going to actually build something that you're probably going to hate, which is what I see most people do in business.
You know what? You reminded me of the E-Myth. You read the E-Myth?
Long time ago.
Did you really read
Yeah,
the E-Myth? Okay.
yeah.
So most people in this generation have read the E-Myth. It was written by a crazy dude named Michael Gerber, who was actually crazy brilliant. And he talks about that in the book, the difference between, you know, somebody who's
coming in
an
the clutch,
entrepreneur,
yeah.
somebody who works
Yeah, really.
in business.
Seriously,
So
no
this is
cap.
like if you own a bakery, are you actually a baker, or do you own a business that sells baking goods, right? And you have to make those distinctions when you're an entrepreneur. So the reason I wanted you on is you're tactic heavy. Like, you're known for tactical stuff. So everybody, the rest of this interview, we're going to get real granular on some different things. We're also going to talk about how to build a life too, because Candy woke up at one point at 40 and had a bunch of money, but didn't have a bunch of life. And so you can have a bunch of money and not be rich. You can not.
Yeah, I'm
live
so glad you're here, Gamer Girl.
But
What
one
else?
thing you said I
What else
wanna
is new?
acknowledge. I
What else is
still
new?
genuinely
Otherwise-
struggle with what you just said. That
Got the
I
house.
don't-
That's awesome.
I would be wealthier and I would have been happier.
Working.
And I've had a lot of happiness and I've built a lot of wealth. I'm, you know, done okay on that stuff. However, I would have more of it had I been willing to evaluate what you just said. What am I doing?
Did you have a
that I
nice
can
summer?
actually
The
build
summer
myself
here was
to
really
do
nice.
something more?
Really
But
sunny.
I'm such a control freak and also cheat from time to time as an entrepreneur. That
You
I
can also
didn't
lurk. You don't have to
invest in
spend
ahead
a whole
of
time
myself to
typing.
scale and give myself a life. So I want to acknowledge that. The other thing that's happening right now is I think by
Oh,
every
dang,
measure,
that
we're in a
sucks.
recession right now. I think we're in.
That's okay.
Now,
It's you're
the
building.
depth of
You
it,
know,
the
that's
length of it,
that's.
I'm not capable.
You're not
of
seeing the
forecasting
the.
yet. Maybe I'll never be capable of doing that. If we could forecast that,
It'll
there's
definitely pay
money
off,
in
as you know.
recession.
It just kind of
You have like
sucks
6
putting
things
that
you can
investment in
recession
now, I
proof
guess.
your life and your business with. You don't have to share all 6.
All's well. That's
But
good.
if someone's listening to this right now and they're like, I think we're in a recession, what are some recession-proof strategies?
Well, first I want to say that when you hear that word, it invokes a lot of fear in people. And it's specifically designed to do that, right? Because that's what people click on. That's what news topics are all about. But you have to remember the most important part. Nothing that happens in our country's economy will ever be more important than what happens in your own personal economy. And if you take the steps to really recession-proof your life, and you do really well in the good times so that you can set yourself up to do well in the bad times too. Like, and what does that mean? It's all the non-sexy stuff, like live within your means. Like, for years within my business, I wasn't making massive amounts of money, but I was living beneath my means. I was saving and investing money into real estate starting at 20 years old. So rather than going and buying all the fancy things that most people do, I was looking at this long game. How do I actually do this in 20 years and be able to retire and quit and be able to do whatever I want? So the first thing is that always remember that whatever you do is far more important, and that there's always opportunity. That's why when I did the research for the book since 2020, there has been more billionaires made than any other time in history. Because when one area or industry goes bad, there's so much opportunity. So it's always keeping that in mind. Because if you're focused on the reality of, the economic downturn, and that's all you focus on, then you're going to miss the opportunity that's right in front of us.
Yeah, you're so right. The data tells us not only are more billionaires being created.
That's cool. That's awesome. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yes.
It's a good idea to do that.
Recession means, I think you make a good point about that.
Golden Knight's kept blowing up again. Callie's doing his thing.
It's interesting. actually
You know?
legitimately wealthy.
There's a lot of viewers in Cali streams. Golden Eye's bumping.
The
There's going to be a lot of
striking in their
a lot of people that are going to see you live for the first time. They've seen the runs. They've heard the epic, insane rise, rookie of the year to fucking
get rid of all the money you make.
6th place in fucking
Get
statue.
rid of all the money you make, which is really stupid.
So that's the 2 man is insane.
Said during
I was talking about you, by the way. You're
sounds
saying, okay,
really
you're not
good
Cali.
when
But
money just keeps flowing in.
that's insane,
What
yeah.
happens if and when that gets reduced, or if and when that slows down? So
He
it's
had like
the
what?
worst advice
Had like
by a bunch of
1,500
people that don't know what they're
or
talking about.
1,200
Got wealthy, like in the last 3 or 4 or
53s.
5 years. I've been wealthy for
Cali, yeah. I did mention Cali, but I mean, I'm talking about
talk about actually work, right?
you. People are going to
So
see you for the
I've
first
blown
time.
my
I know
mind.
the
And I want
speaker.
to say this to everybody. I'm
volume's
talking about
loud,
like
but-
being a crazy person going, you know what? I spend $4 on a coffee at Starbucks. I can make one at home for 90 cents. I'm saving the $3 in some sort of save. Are you that nuts about it? Because I think if you don't save money when you don't have a lot, you're probably not going to save money when you do have a lot.
All washed up.
Absolutely. It's a habit.
What? Yeah,
like
right.
How you build wealth is a habit, and when you
No
start
worries. You don't have
developing
to.
that habit when
No
you have a
no
little,
obligation,
whatever
obviously.
you develop, you're going to do
No
the same
stress.
thing when you have a lot. So I mean,
Lost
I
so
could
many
go
points.
At any point in
Yeah,
my
it's
life,
sad.
I went
Not
and
sad,
bought
but
the Rolls Royce, the
ridiculous.
Bentley, the whatever, and I just couldn't do it. I couldn't bring myself to do it. I still drive a car. I never buy a brand new car. I never
That's okay.
have debt on bad debt or car payments. I buy like my Range Rover. I bought 3 years old, and I parked it right next to a client of mine that had a brand new one that paid $140,000 for it. And I'm like, that is the stupidest thing. Like, why would you buy it 3 years old? You could have got it at half price. You know, so it's I don't understand. I think the way, the litmus test that someone can decide right now if they're living beyond their means is this one little tactic, is if you can't save, if you can't invest 20% of your money right now. If I say to you, the only way that you can get wealthy is to take 20% of what you're earning right now and you need to start investing it, here's what you invest in. And if you say, oh my gosh, I can't do it, you're overspending.
I so totally agree. And what's really great about this
20%. Holy shit! I've heard
almost no one
10.
talks about
I've
this.
heard 10, and you're
Like,
in a
it's
good spot.
completely counterculture. And now it's
20,
like
I never heard
something
about that.
I have
Makes sense. Like it makes
I bought
obviously
my
more makes
first
sense.
new car for my wife, by the way, not for me, last year.
Yeah, that's
and I'm
like
51. I don't buy new. People go, man, your jets are unbelievable. They are unbelievable, and they're a freaking fortune. And I've never bought a brand new.
yeah, but these are like rich
Why
people
would I do
also.
that? Why
Get
would
the
I
fuck
buy
out of here.
gold?
Yeah,
5,
exactly.
55, 50,
Yeah, these
someone
people are
paid
rich.
55
Like,
million for
I'm
it.
not saying that we
24
can't be
months
like that one day.
later,
We're
I
not
can pay $22
approaching that, but
million
like.
for it. And 36 months later, I can pay $15 million for it.
But these are financial
Those
planners. The guy,
numbers.
that
Why would I
man is a
spend
financial planner.
$120,000 on a Range Rover
So he
where
knows
18 months later I can buy the
the
same damn
the
thing for
status of the
$68,000 or
majority of
whatever the
American
math is on
families,
it.
right?
I'm totally with you on that.
Yeah.
Because I think, and by the way, if you're in a relationship, there's just 2 types of people in life. There are savers and spenders. And if you live alone, you're either a saver or a spender. You want to build the habit of being a saver and an investor. If you're married to somebody, I hope at least one of you is a saver. Here's a formula for a broke marriage: 2 spenders.
Yes.
Do you agree with that? 2 spenders that are in a marriage together are toast. They cannot physically make enough money to ever get wealthy because they spend. So I'm with you on that. Okay. Someone's listening and they say, all right, I'm actually listening to this and I have a job.
Yeah,
I don't think
he's
I
a
always
pretty
wanna
smart
have one.
financial advisor. I don't know who the woman
Self-employed
is.
thing sounds a little better, but the business owner thing sounds really good.
Versus
You
telling
have
someone
something
take
in here that
20%
you
right
talk about
now.
how to
Yeah.
start a business while
Oh,
keeping
I
a
agree,
steady
100%.
Paycheck. I think you and I did it the same way in the same industry.
Like,
so
I don't
I'll
think
let
she's
you
a
talk about
financial
what you think
advisor.
one of those ways is.
So
But he is.
the easiest way to keep your job.
That's why
and
she's
do
not very
something else
sensitive
is
and
find
doesn't
what
understand
do
the
you
reality
already
of-
have experience in. What do you have
Like,
skills
eventually
in?
a family
This isn't
will
about, like,
get there
start
if they-
posting on the
you know,
internet that you are a
there's
business
so many
coach if
steps
you've
you have
never
to
built a
take along the
business.
way.
Like, it drives me insane. Like, have integrity, what
tackle
you have
debt.
experience in, what you have skills in,
That's
and
the
you
big
can
one.
start doing that on the
It's the
side
big
for
elephant in the
yourself.
room.
It opens you up to building a business. You can get an LLC. It opens you up to tax savings, which we talk about in the
touch.
book too.
Yeah.
Like when you are a business owner or a real estate investor, now you have the same thing that these massive corporations,
But I mean,
millions of dollars in lobbyists to get breaks.
it's all scalable, right? That's why they talk percentages,
So if
I
you're doing
guess.
something currently in your job,
But
just
yeah,
do it for
20%. If
yourself.
you're
It could be going on
first question
Upwork or
is,
Fiverr.
are there
It
any
could be,
debts? What's your debt,
going
right?
to a Facebook group in a community that you live
That's
in and
like
say,
that's the
hey,
highest
I'm an
percentage thing.
electrician, but I'm also
Obviously, you
taking
shouldn't
a
pay
little
everything in
side
debt,
jobs
but
on the side. Contact me here.
gotta
I've
definitely
seen people
save
build massive businesses,
10% at
stringing
least.
lights and doing landscaping and turning into
20,
a
holy
real
shit.
business so that they don't, it's easy for people to say, burn the boats, create the business. But sometimes if you have a family to depend on, that's reckless advice.
Man, like, you're totally right. And this is, again, everybody, why today is so important to me is I have real deep concerns about the advice I see being thrown around on social media and in a lot of coaching programs that will work when all of the economy is exploding.
Yes.
You almost, in a good economy, can't give somebody too much stupid advice because the tide keeps rising. Where you separate great advice from so-so or terrible advice is
On the
when
hard times.
the economy recesses to some extent. That's when all of the flaws in something is revealed. When there's a bunch of water flowing, you don't see all the rocks under the ocean. But when it starts to recess and the tide comes back, then you see the rocks and the bumps and the scary stuff. And so you're 100% right about that. If you have a family, maybe you shouldn't burn every single boat. Maybe your kids need to eat. Maybe them going to school still matters. Maybe there's a transition period. Maybe there's a time where you're going to have 3 jobs.
Yeah, they
Right?
live in
You're
like
gonna have your
Laguna
full-time job,
Beach,
another
like
job,
California.
and your side
So,
hustle. And that's okay as well, because it's going to make a great story for you someday.
And
but
maybe
life
you don't
insurance
wanna
agents,
stress
they
out
they
your
know the,
relationship. You know,
Right.
sometimes
they're probably the
people
ones that
burn
know
the
the
boats,
median
go
of
all in,
families
and
the
they're
best in
completely stressed out
America,
of their mind
except for these
because
people that
now
live
they
in
have all this
Laguna Beach.
responsibility. There's another way that you can still build wealth and still have a great quality of life. And I think that's the most important part of the whole thing is it's like a lot of the advice I hear, which I think is what you're referencing, is it's like there's this all or nothing mentality. But in these difficult times, it's kind of like you said with the rocks are still there. You're just now seeing them. But they were always there. And I think with any industry, any vertical, any type of market, it's always going to. When we did research, I looked at the last 40 years of every market, the S&P 500, the real estate market, and it always pulls back.
Right.
So it's like, and when you really look at the chart over time, that's why wealth, business, relationships, it's playing the long game. Because when you look at the chart, it always pulls back. But then in that opportunity, when you can double down because you've lived below your means, you've been able to invest, then you can double down in these dips and you can create more wealth than you ever would have if it was a straight up chart.
Oh my gosh, that's a fact. By the way, if it's a straight up chart, it doesn't let the little person ever get on the train.
Absolutely.
But when it dips is when small, economically small people, like myself when I started, like when you started, it allows us to get into the game. If the chart just went straight up all the time, we've missed it. But when it dips, it's a good thing. That's what everybody needs to get. And I don't even know if we're in a big dip. We may be in a huge dip right now, and it may be not so big of a dip. I don't know. But what I do know is this is a great time to be living below your means, as is all the time. The other thing you said that I want to second, I get asked a lot, and I always want to say this with all the love that I can muster for somebody. They'll say, hey, I want to be the best speaker in the world like you, or I want to be a coach. And I often say, I think the thing you probably should do first is build your resume. Like, do something first. Have some credibility to your message. Say, this is what I did. The reason I wanted you on is you built real wealth as a young woman. The thing you just said, though, that when you got there, my understanding is you got to a certain point and you were like, this isn't great. I mean, I've got a bunch of money, but my life is not what I thought it would be. And I relate to that on some level. That other parts of my life weren't as rich as they should have been by the time I got to being rich financially. And that there actually became a part of me in my life, which I now don't believe, but I wondered for a while, like, was this worth it? What it did to me emotionally, what it did to me physically. Because the amount of work really required to win is a lot. And I didn't take care of myself during those years. I didn't take care of my emotional well-being. I didn't heal some things in me. I was like, I don't know about you, but I was always like, I'll get around to it once I'm rich.
Yeah.
I'm going to get to this thing. I probably should. And by the way, maybe if I get rich enough, it'll just like go away. So what about for you?
So it's interesting because we do, I think that it's a common thought in society that money solves problems. And certainly it can make life easier in a lot of ways and fuller in some ways. But when that's the goal, if it's only to build money, if it's only to be rich, you've really missed the point of the entire thing. And so I started at 19, and it was about 25, 26 years old. I had a couple commercial properties. I had a couple flips under my belt. You know, I was buying foreclosures at $20,000, $30,000 and selling them for $100,000. Like, not crazy, but just enough that while some friends were doing the bar scene and, you know, all of the golfing and all of that, I was flipping houses on the weekend. Like, that's what I was doing. And so, you know, but I was doing all of that, and I think what happened was at 19, looking back, I realized that I was trying to run from something, right? I was trying to become something. I had so much leverage of not wanting to be poor, not wanting to ever depend on anybody, to not ever need anybody, because I thought if I need somebody financially, then they can control me, they have power over me. And coming from the childhood that I had, I didn't ever want to have someone have that control. And so I feel like I ran so hard that once I was getting there, if you will, I started getting there and having money and having all of these things. I was like, is this it? Like, did I climb this mountain? Did I get out of poverty? Did I overcome all of this for this? And I felt so empty. Like, I had more than I ever had in my life, but yet I felt empty. I'm like, how is this possible? And I had bought a building at the corner of town, and I had no clue what I was going to do with it, but it was a good deal, and so I bought it. And I was driving by that building that day. I was in a black Escalade, had the shoes from the outside, all the things that the girls want, right? And I'm like, what am I going to do with that building? And it was like a voice, just like us talking, said, put your animal shelter there. And I thought, I've never wanted an animal. Like, that was never a conscious thought in my mind. And it was like when I looked at that street and I saw the businesses that I owned and the buildings that I owned, and I heard that, it was like the recognition of everything I had and also what I didn't, all in the same moment. Because while I was trying to build wealth and build the business and become this thing, I realized that I was driving home to a guy I didn't even know if he loved me or cared about me. I had, friends that I wasn't even sure if they were really my friends or if it was just because of business and all of these other things. And when I heard that voice in that moment, it was like I realized that all of this really means nothing. That if the goal is to build money and have the things and to be rich, we actually miss the whole point of why we're here. It's to contribute, it's to give, it's to make a difference. And so from that moment on, I took, again, in fear, no clue on how to start a nonprofit. I took every step forward on figuring out how to start a nonprofit and how to take this building that I bought and turn it into an animal shelter and start saving lives. And then, we grew on from there and developed a sanctuary and have programs for at-risk youth and kids that are abused. But yeah, so it's interesting when you're running from something that you sometimes forget to pause and realize how far you've come. Because sometimes those mountains, we get so focused on climbing that mountain that we don't realize that maybe this next mountain isn't for us to climb. Maybe we need to look back and acknowledge on all of those hills that we came through and see if maybe there's something we've missing. Sometimes I feel like we're so focused on what we want in life that sometimes we miss what we can actually have.
Ooh, wow.
And that it might just be that much bigger and bolder than what we truly want.
Yeah, you're amazing. That's wonderful that you've done that, by the way. One of my favorite things ever said on the show, right there. In 500 shows, or whatever it is. We're a lot alike, and I think it's okay to be running from something. Like, the truth is, my main driver for many years was not to be rich. It was to not be broke.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And I don't know if that's because, like, when my dad would drink, I was worried he was going to leave, and my mom was a homemaker and had no way to support our family, or I don't know what it is. But I know I've always been very much not wanting to be broke. And so I ran from that. Many people can relate to this. I know you did too. I ran from, like, whatever bad stuff happened to me when I was a kid. I wanted to get as far from that as I could. I ran from my lack of confidence. I ran from feeling insecure. I ran from fear, right? I ran from those things. And I actually think most successful people have that in common, and it's okay. But I want everybody to hear this, because I'm writing about it right now, but I just think what you just said is so eloquent. It's okay to be running from something, but at some point in that race, you have to begin to run towards what your dream is, towards what fulfills you. That'll only take you so far. And when you finally get away from it, like you said, I'm rich now, I'm no longer poor. You go, this was it? Because I never ran towards what I wanted to become. I didn't run towards what I wanted to create. I didn't run towards what I wanted to give. And it was only till later in life, maybe like 20 years ago.
No obligation, Gabriel. I'm not sure if you're Slater, but if you have a cool limo story, I'm just thinking, you must have seen some cool stuff driving a limo and driving people places. If you have a cool story, you share it. If not, you can just lurk. No worries.
heed our advice. At some point, begin to run towards who you want to become as well. And what you'll learn is that you don't have to really run towards it. It's already within you. And you just magnify more and more of who you've always been in there when you find your real home.
And that's all that money really is.
It's a magnifier, is that what you mean?
Yeah, I mean, if you are already a good person and you have a heart to help people, and maybe you're doing that right now in some way, like, all that money is going to do is give you that. It's going to magnify it. If you're a jerk, you're just going to be a bigger jerk with money. That's really all it is. It's going to magnify who you are. And so for me, it gave me the ability to, buy my dad a motorcycle and, be able to, like, just gift and donate and serve and start a farm and all these things. And I think that's really where it is. But I think where people get tripped up is they sometimes have the big idea. They have the big dream. And then it gets replaced with big fear of either not being enough or not, having the right education or not being from the right family. And so one of the things I did is really young, and I don't know where I got this from, but I started writing down all of the things I overcame on a list, like just literally writing it down. And if you're not driving, you're listening to this, I would encourage everyone to do this because I think it's a really powerful exercise. I've never heard anyone else talk about this. But grab a sheet of paper, and if you're struggling with something right now, if you don't know, like, what is this thing for me, or I'm too scared to do this next thing, or I can't create wealth, I'm always going to be here because of X, Y, and Z. I want you to write down everything that you've overcome, everything that was sent to destroy you, everything that was meant to cripple you. And write down all of those things. Was it, losing a parent or losing a child, or not being able to have a child, or, suffering abuse in some way? Like, everyone has pain and trauma. And I want you to, when you're about to do this next thing, whether you get inspired from this and you want to go create wealth or start a business, and that fear creeps up, you got to pull out that list and review all of those things. And remember who you are. Remember that you survived 100% of your worst days because you're still here. And if you can accomplish all of that, who's to say that this business or starting a Roth IRA or yada yada, it's all a joke because you've got through all of this other stuff. And I think that's so important for people to remember that how powerful they truly are.
Well, you're an example of that. Again, I only do one of these a week, and so the seat you're in is really precious to me, because there's millions of people that are now extended part of my family, and when someone sits in that seat and is doing what you're doing right now, I'm really honored to be doing this. What you just said is it makes me emotional because you're 100% right. It also makes me emotional because I know a little bit more now about what you've had to overcome. You're like an example of this, and so you see this woman, very young, starts these businesses. Dad's a mechanic, mom's cleaning houses, and she just grows up to become this amazing person with this amazing life. She's gotten wealthy. She's helped other people get wealthy. She teaches people how to get wealthy. She started the shelter. She's done all these other things. Yet you had your own form of abuse that you had to overcome. I just think if you're willing to share a little bit about it, you'd give a lot of people a lot of hope. So what was the main thing you had to overcome? A lot of different things, but what was the main thing you had to overcome?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I haven't talked. When this originally happened, I probably hadn't talked about it for 20 years, and it's still something new that it's tough to share, to be completely transparent with you. But I do it because I feel that when people see us in a certain way, right, and they see us the way we are right now, they think, oh, that person had it easy, and oh, they don't understand my journey, and I've been through stuff. And I agree. I mean, 1 out of every 6 girls has been raped or sexually abused. And so I guarantee you there are tons of people listening. And I'm one of those 6. I was sexually abused as a child by a family member for a really long time. I really don't think I ever went back and did a lot of that to try to figure it out, and that's okay. But it took 20 years to ever talk about it. And because of that, it's interesting. I've often thought, what exactly happens? I feel like there's almost like a part of your soul that dies when that happens, because you're never the same, and you never make decisions the same way. And I feel like it's always something you have to heal from, and it could be physical abuse for someone listening. It could be emotional, or you're in a relationship with a narcissist, and whatever it is for you, the most important thing you can do is, number 1, don't let it define you. And when I was 15 years old, I heard for the first time in my life that you are a product of your decisions, not of your circumstances. And it was at that point I thought, this does not need to define me. I get to choose. Like, I can't control what someone does to me, but I can surely control what I do next. And I wanted to be that person that no matter what, if somebody else is dealing with something, here's proof. Here's proof that no matter what it is, no matter how difficult your life has been, you too can choose to heal, and you can use that pain, as opposed to letting it cripple you, you can use that pain to really get you closer to your purpose. And I don't mean purpose in something you sit on the couch and like, oh, what's my purpose? But like actually moving towards, which I think what it all is contribution. How can you contribute? How can you serve? How can you show up in the world to just show people what's possible and that it's safe for them to do it too? And so I've done a long journey. I've made some poor relationship decisions along the way, and had a lot of healing to do. And that's really where the nonprofit came in. It's why it's called Heal Animal Rescue, because we heal animals and we heal kids and humans. That we've rescued animals that have been adopted, and we've heard people say like, I wanted to kill myself, but I knew that if I did, my dog wouldn't get out today. So it's so much bigger than us, and I feel that if I hadn't gone through what I went through as a child, if I hadn't had to figure all of that out and learn as I go and just find my own way, that I wouldn't have the heart that I have now for people. That I wouldn't, I don't want people to suffer, whether it's entrepreneurs or people that are, maybe not economically where they want to be, or any animal that's suffering. Like, I wouldn't have that same thing. So anyone that's going through something or has gone through something, imagine when you're through this and you're healed, who you can help and who you can serve through it. If you just sit on the couch and stay at home and wallow in that pain, you've missed the point.
You have. I cannot thank you enough for being willing to share that. And because I know how, I don't have anything like that. But I also know how hard it is when you become successful to then reveal parts of your life that they can feel embarrassing, right? They can feel embarrassing. I know when I started to first talk about my dad and drinking and all that, like, it's kind of embarrassing, even still a little bit. And what you're sharing is 100 million times more difficult to share. So I just want to acknowledge your courage on it. And I don't know, when someone does it, I have this weird thing. I like picture the little girl you. I wish I could go back and hug her and tell her it's going to be okay, and then say, by the way, here's who you're going to become. Here's who you're going to become. And you're going to be sitting in a studio someday helping millions of people with this story. It's going to be okay. But the thing you said that makes it okay, and this is the rub, your story isn't inspiring if you didn't come out the other side of it. The fact that you won, the fact that you persevered, the fact that you became something makes the story inspiring because it didn't define you. And so if you're sitting there and you've had some sort of a struggle, a divorce, a relationship, someone's lied to you, you've been cheated on, an injury, an illness, you've lost a family member, abuse, alcohol, sexual, whatever it might be, it's only inspiring if you win. It's only inspiring if you come out of the other side of it and do something great with your life. And that's what you've done. And I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of people who go do something with their life, having to overcome things. And we all in our life, what's ever happened to you is major to you. It's major to you. And so, and those you go, I haven't really had anything happen. Then your ass sure as heck should be winning. You sure as heck should be winning so you can go help people who are going through it. And this notion that Rory said on our show about you're most qualified and capable to help the person you used to be is such a powerful statement. It's why we want to change and we want to grow. But let's help them financially a little bit, because this is your wheelhouse. I'm not going to have you on and not talk not enough about the money pieces of things. So let's just go right to it. First of all, what would you teach children about money? Because I think a lot of adults who have an elementary understanding still of money, to no fault of their own. It's not taught in school. I learned geometry and algebra. I haven't used it since. Actually, I'm not even really sure I ever learned it. I'm pretty sure I cheated off Melissa Ramos's paper for 3 years. But aside from that, even had I learned it, I never used it since. I would have loved some basic budgeting, like how to read a financial statement, some of that stuff. So what advice would you give to somebody? What would you teach your kids about money?
So I want to say one thing before we get into all of this, because like we shared, there's a lot of things, right? The accolades, the lists, the things that overcome. But I want to make sure everyone knows that there is nothing about my story. There is nothing about my journey. There's nothing that extraordinary. I wasn't that smart. I wasn't that connected. I just did a lot of ordinary things. So this isn't going to be some like life-changing innovation that we're going to, charter a rover to Pluto. Like these are going to be very basic things that anyone can do. And I think that where the schools really miss are teaching basic fundamentals. And I mean, it could be as simple as like we were saying, don't take on bad debt. Yep. Don't buy the car because you can make the payment. Just because you can make the payment doesn't mean you can afford it. If you can't actually write a check for something, you cannot afford it.
Period.
But what people want to do is that they want to look like they can afford something, so they take the payment as opposed to writing a check for the car that they can actually afford.
Yep.
And so I think that's key. And our kids are only going to do what we do. They're not going to listen to what we say.
Yeah, caught, not taught.
Yes,
Yep.
caught, not taught, yes. So if you are telling them, hey, you don't want to take on bad debt, you don't want to live beneath your means, and you want to save and you want to give, but you're not actively doing those things, you're a hypocrite.
Right.
So it's like first you got to be able to do these things and teach them to kids so that you can close the gap where the schools leave out. So a lot of it is, I think one of the quickest things you could do for kids is if you give your kids anything, an allowance, or, make sure that instead of just buying them the next thing, that you give them a way to budget their own money. Let's say instead of giving them, we're just going to go buy your clothes, you say to them, you have $300 for school clothes. I don't care if you buy a $500 or a $150 pair of shoes and 2 shirts, or if you buy 14 shirts and pants, but you have $300 and I'm not giving you a dime more. And you allow them to look at prices and figure out what they want and be able to go shop sales and maybe look on Amazon or online to find it cheaper. But oftentimes I see parents just shopping.
Very good.
So that's one quick lesson.
Shoot, I wish I would have done that. No, for real, that's great.
Right?
Okay.
And then it helps them if they ever want to build a business or just with their own family, how to budget money. Another one is my late friend Ann always did this with her 3 kids, and she actually came from money. So this is a really hard thing, I think, for people with money to even do. But she would have her kids, she would give them whatever their allowance was for the month, and they could only spend half. They had to invest 25%, they had to give 25%, and they could spend.
Awesome.
So what are you actually teaching your kids? Right? We can say, make sure that you donate, but if you're not actually framing it in a way that they can be successful, kids, I see it every day at the shelter, kids love to get involved in causes that they can see. Donating their birthday presents to a charity instead of just collecting more junk that's going to sit in a landmine a year down the road is a great way. Getting them involved and helping and giving back. Like, we didn't have a lot, of course, but I remember every Christmas going to Hills. Remember Hills? And they had a tree with little angels on it, and you could pull a kid's name off a tree. And I knew that meant I got one less gifts because we only had so much. But I remember that. I remember pulling the angels and giving the gifts far more than anything I ever got. And that's so important. And so I think some of those things are really, really key, making sure
you're
that...
You're totally wrong about one thing, where you said, like, what you're going to say isn't revolutionary or life-changing. That really was. Like, I've raised 2 great kids. I wish I'd have done both those things. Like, that's really a big deal. Teaching them how to... I want to go back through it. It was just... It's super good. It's really, really good. I get the feeling, I know. One of those businesses you made a lot of money in is real estate, right? And so if someone's listening to this, they're like, I don't know what business to start. I've always I'm licensed, so I can't make any financial recommendations to people because I have to let you be the person to do that. But what would you say to somebody who says, you know what, I haven't really found, that thing you said about the career earlier, that's not really, I'm a nurse, but I don't think I want to do nursing as my side thing. I think I know where you might go on that, but like, what would you say to them about it?
Hello, welcome. Thank you.
Where there might be some promise long term.
So what I love about real estate investing is the barrier to entry. And people might think, well, no, it's
Thank you,
very
Scotty,
entry
417.
high.
Appreciate
If you're
it.
going to buy $1 million in stocks, you need $1 million. If you're going to buy $1 million property, you might only need
There's a highway here,
250
that's
or
the
300,000,
417
depending on your
in Ottawa.
debt-to-income
There's a
ratio
highway
and
in
all those
Ottawa.
things we don't need to get
It
into,
it
but
goes to
I
Ottawa.
just want to give the concept.
Called
You
417.
need less money to buy real estate. But if you're going to invest in a stock, you actually need that money. And if for any reason something happens in the market, guess what? Let's say you're on margin, they can do a call, and now all of a sudden you need to come up with that money. But the way that the government has structured loans for real estate, real assets, they can't do that. And you're locked in at a specific interest rate, typically, for a long time. So I love real estate because it allows anybody to start to build wealth. Because it's really hard to make money on 20 grand in the stock market. It's a long time. Not to say that you shouldn't be 100% maxing out your Roth IRA. You absolutely, if you have a business, should be looking at a 401k or a simple or a self-employed 401k to max all of your tax savings out. But for the average person, you know, anyone listening here that hasn't bought a house yet, and maybe this will be your first purchase because you're renting, think about getting a first-time home buyer's loan, which is called FHA, as you know. 3.5%, a little bit more in fees. You can
Down,
actually-
by the way, down
yeah,
is what she's
sorry,
saying.
3.5% down, sorry. You can actually buy a duplex, a triplex.
Live in one and rent the other out.
It's the number one hack to build wealth.
First property I ever owned.
Get out.
First
That's
property I
awesome.
ever owned.
Yeah.
Yeah, about a $200,000 duplex. I lived in one side and rented out the other.
Your living expenses are paid. You stay there a year. You fulfill your FHA loan requirements, which require you to stay there for a year. You put someone else there, rinse and repeat. Most people want what has been pitched to us, which is the big house, the picket fence. If you will delay that sort of stuff, I promise you that you will be able to buy a bigger house with a bigger fence and more toys inside, but people want the now.
I promise you she's right. Let me just tell you, I'm sitting here right now. I can promise you I started to play Little Monopoly so I could play Big Monopoly
Yes.
later in my life. Now, let's go to a couple things. People say, wait a minute. You both just said 15
Don't
minutes
quit,
ago
thank you.
that debt is stupid. But
I
there's
am
two
done,
types of
though.
debt,
It's the
everybody.
end. It's
So
the end.
explain the difference. Just
It's the end. I did all my
Just
stuff. Let me
listen.
show
Listen
you.
anyways.
Right, just listen. Right.
We'll make it short. Good debt is anything that can appreciate assets, businesses, right? Anything that's a good debt. And this is where there's a lot of conflict in the quote, thought leader space, because there's a difference between good and
Bench
bad
press.
debt. Bad debt is anything that depreciates your car, your Louis bag, your shoes, your Rolex, your boat. Those are all depreciating assets. The second you buy them, they lose
Bench
value.
press,
You're buying them at the highest
bicep
price
curl,
possible, and then they continually
fly,
just
dips,
depreciate until it's
chin-ups.
like I look at this in 2001.
Leg raises,
I wanted to
V-sits,
buy my
L-sits,
dream
hanging leg
car, which
raises.
at the time was a Jeep Grand Cherokee.
Exercise bike,
And it was, I think, $30-some thousand
and
at the
stretch.
time. The house
good,
up the
pretty
street
good
was a foreclosure for
overall.
$23,000.
Diverse. I was diverse
Guess
today.
which
That was
one I
good.
said.
That was good. That was good.
And guess what that's worth?
Good set.
Right? That Jeep's now worth, you probably couldn't even get $4,000 for that Jeep, a 2001 Jeep Grand Cherokee. That house has cash flowed year after year after year for 20 years. And then when I flipped it, I was able to take that money and put it into another property.
Yeah. A lot of people listen and they go, okay, that sounded really good earlier, that whole thing, like I control the property, but I still need the $200,000-300,000. I don't have that. The other thing about real estate, I'm not pitching real estate.
For your
She
core.
is, just to be clear.
No, thank you. I
The other
will.
thing
I will
is that
flex and
sometimes
flex.
you
So
can
flex
control that
for
entire piece of real estate with none of
what's the
your
word?
own. If you
Registration
find an
purposes.
unbelievable property and find somebody with money who would put the 20% down, and you split profits together. So there's lots of ways to get creative, and it's an industry worth investigating. I think you wanted to say something on that, but I also, what if someone listens and goes, hey, but I could buy a house right now that would be depreciated? Because I might be buying at the top of the market. You just said there might be a recession. What if I paid $240 for that house? And this is valid.
Okay.
And I
I'm
can
gonna
wake
go.
up in 2 years. We've all seen this
Thank you
happen
so much,
before,
Scotty.
And it's worth $200. Thank
you so much.
So
Gamer girl,
obviously, there's something
being
to be
back.
said
Thank you,
for being
Dickus Khan,
savvy
all
and
the
market
lurkers.
analysis and everything else, but I think you should at least address that. 'cause
Gamer
that's what
girls,
someone's
awesome
dealing
to
with.
see you again.
100%. I hear this every
So
day.
glad you're back.
How long are you holding
Really
that property?
made the stream.
Real estate is also playing
Same with
the long
Dick,
game.
same with
If you're
Scotty.
looking to buy a property and then flip
Really,
it in 3
it's
to 6
awesome.
months, yeah, you better know what you're doing, or you could lose
Okay.
your money in this market.
Yep.
But if your goal is to build a
You rock,
portfolio
buddy. Oh, you
of
rock, Scotty.
investments, even if it's just
Okay,
a
I'm gonna
flat
rate somebody, though. I gotta go. I'm
20
so
or
sweaty.
40
Oh my
or
God.
50, and you're planning to
It was a
hold
good
them
workout.
until you retire.
Thanks.
It doesn't
I do
matter
workout
if it
streams at
drops
Golden Live
10,
streams.
20%,
I
because
follow all
again, like we
followers.
talked in the beginning of the episode, no chart goes up forever. There's always dips, and the same thing in the real estate market. Even if you bought that property
Dogger,
for 250
just woke
and
up.
it drops to 200, if you're collecting
Should we
rent
raid
on
the
it,
dogger?
who cares?
Let's do it.
When the market dries up, and there isn't maybe as much people buying because of the interest rates are
Sorry.
so high, guess what they're going to be doing? They're going to be renting. So there's going to be an influx of people renting. There has never been a time in the history of the United States that there hasn't been a need for rentals. So there, you will always, it's like it's having
Okay.
infinite demand, and there's only
being here.
supply issues. They can't build them in certain areas. And I know there's people, you
Just a
can't
simple
even buy
gamer.
a
That's
house
all
in
good.
Jersey.
I game for fun
It's
too.
all
That's
where
the best.
Yes, you're not
do
going
you
to
play?
California or
We're
in
about to
Phoenix
raid now, though, so
necessarily,
this might cut out in any
little
second.
pockets of towns that are outside.
What do you
I could
play?
buy a house right now, tons of them for $100,000 back where I'm originally from. So they're available. And just remember that anything is playing the long game.
I totally agree. I wish there were things we could debate
Okay,
here
it's
today.
about to
because
raid
I
in,
really
like,
enjoy doing that, but there's
really,
nothing
really
so
soon.
far that I would debate with you. I agree with that. The other thing too, everybody, is
Thanks
that
for being here.
don't do a deal that you can't explain. In other words, don't. I've bought, I think it's safe to say, hundreds of millions of dollars of real estate, and even I recently got taken advantage of by somebody in a couple deals I did because I trusted the person and not the deal, and the person was not ethical at all. Probably did some illegal things too. And so when you are going to invest money, my dad used to say this to me: if you can't explain it back to me, don't do it. And so if you can't explain it back to somebody, don't do it. Make sure you do your due diligence. Make sure you're careful about it. Okay, let's move over to life a little bit now, because I got you. We've done a lot of stuff on financial. We've moved around on that. Was it worth it? I want you to be real. You sacrificed some things. I didn't go to the club either.